mute us both now. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Digital Archipelago. I hope that you are all doing splendid on this fine Thursday afternoon or morning or evening, wherever you're at. But welcome back, Gio. How are you?
I'm good. I just I actually did a bit of a workout before we went on. First time, well, I'm mostly focusing on the upper body because last week or so I had I sprained my foot. So I'm back on the roll and ride now. It's pretty good. I feel amped up, still on the, no, I think I just broke my fast with something small, but I'm still got the energy going, gonna very high energy. No, wait, that's the Trump. Very high energy, very high energy. Took a break from Content Minded this week because I've just been interviewing people. A lot of great stuff, a lot of theory-driven stuff recently too. So,
fantastic! Good. The theory cells need to rise up and get the work done. So that's just good news. But So this week is going to be just sort of news from the Twitter front, alongside just a mishmash of topics.
News from the modern world.
News from the modern world. Right?
If okay, listen. I never used to frequent this forum. I'm not going to even name it, just in case, right? But there used to be this certain forum that never mind. They used to have this section called News from the Modern World, and I always thought that was hilarious. Like they're their own little separate island community, and it's like they're going back to like gather the happenings from like the rest of like normie world. So please don't name the forum in the comments. Listen, I never used to frequent this forum. No, it's not. No, it has nothing to do with a certain metal element on the periodic table. Has nothing to do with that. I'm sorry. Just anyways.
But anyways, so that has been a mishmash of things that we didn't want to talk about. Was news from the Twitter front. If you're wondering why our cameras are off, just one, my internet has been spotty as of late. That and I look like a giant puffed up bee sting. My allergies look like shit. So forgive me for my vanity. But
So
So
I just souped up. I'm not wearing a shirt right now.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm like in a disgusting sweatshirt, and I look like garbage. So we do this for you, gents. We do this for you. So just sit back, listen, and relax.
I see the viewership probably like took a sheer drop brainbuster when I said I'm not wearing my shirt.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to
Reagan Lodge. we met in a previous forum. Like, oh no, Reagan, I'm very sorry. I didn't even know you were in the chat. Oh boy.
So this came on as about lately because there was some drama a few weeks ago, which for some reason I decided to write about. And our mutual friend, friend Catherine D, had messaged me back. And she had said something along the lines of, well, the Claremont Institute shouldn't wear frog face. And that just about killed me because I thought that was such a great line.
Frog
and we
face.
Used it for today. We shouldn't be institutions should not be trying to, seek or act like us. And we probably shouldn't act like them. We all have our own respective ecosystems. But, I just thought that was funny. And so today we're going to talk about, gatekeeping, drama, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we also have Patrick Casey in the chat. So, thank you for coming, my friend.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, speaking of which, do we want to hit on that issue first?
Speaking of internet drama, no. I think but a serious point, like not to out him, but I think that frog exploitation, that's amazing. I think that it's a serious point because I mean Patrick has a lot of experience with a lot of online communities. And I think like lot of people here who have like sort of are old hats can like, I think they can know the signs, but then people devolve into like a lot of paranoiac about, you know, this person's an infiltrator, which I mean, we'll get into. We'll get into. But I see a lot of old hats in the chat. Reagan Lodge among them. Yeah, Geo's gonna A-log me. No, they're A-logging me. Gator, shut down. Am I still with you, Prude? Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you just
Oh,
fine.
I maybe, yeah. Oh, no problem. Just the embarrassment. Froggers of the world unite. Yeah, froggers of the world. But no, about frogsploitation. I know, like DF, Catherine, she gets this a lot, but I think that it, you know, one thing before we go on is that we have to make clear that this is not like a new phenomenon. This has happened many times in history where, and this is why I always say that we're an avant-garde rather than a legitimate quote unquote movement. Like, I think that yes, there are movements within it or people who have attempted to create movements, but at the same time, I think that avant-garde fits the description, as I've said for years now. And I think that every avant-garde experiences a moment where it, you know, there's always a balance between having a sort of perennial mission and having a spot within history that is more than just flailing flash in the pan interest. But I feel that there are elements to anything, including this thing of ours, with every avant-garde, where you create a moment of kinetic energy that unfortunately will always be, you know, fed off from by outside forces. And I feel that, you know, we're looking at this like it's a new thing. And in some ways it is because of the internet. But at the same time, if you actually look at the group dynamics and the sort of social ecology that accompanies underground or outsider groups, it's not just that you're subverted from the outside. It's more of like on the inside. I wrote this article years ago that was ironically enough on a certain website by a certain thing of ironies, but whatever. It was called Shark Wooming, or I had some like theory cell. I had some theory cell titled to it. I think it was like something about online ecologies, blah, blah, blah. But essentially, I was watching this nature documentary, and it was about how, I believe it was lion sharks, where they are born into a placental womb tank in their mother, and they are totally blind, and they feast off of this pink goo that is placental fluid, but also they feed off of each other, and whoever gets to swim out alive after a few months gets to be born, in other words. So I had this model of every online ecology being the shark womb, where we all try to like eviscerate each other so we could maybe swim out into out of the reservation into mainstream acceptability. And that was my model. I called it shark wombing, where you stab people in the back, you sort of like do these like weird drama F and G type of dynamic going on that you cultivate, and in the faint hopes that you can swim out of the womb into the mainstream. And I feel like that's probably a big pull as to why a lot of online ecologies end up imploding. And this has happened before. This happened very early days of the internet as well. There's a lot of e-celebs who have literally made their bones off of piling up the bodies of lessers before them that they've betrayed, and they've sort of ascended into the Jacob's ladder. Imagine, they're constructing the ladder out of the bones of previous e-celebs. And I think that, God, why am I saying this? I don't know. Stop me, Prude, stop me. But you know what I'm getting. You know what I'm getting, yeah.
And this isn't even, I mean, this happened long before the internet, too. There's plenty of underground political zines and movements that fell apart due to internal ambitions. And, I immediately think about some of the lawsuits in the like Willis Carto Institute for Historical Review days that had internal disputes and issues. I mean, the National Review, we talk about it here on the internet, like this was originally founded by James Burnham, and now no one kind of talks about him in the modern day version of whatever the NRO is. And
that's crazy that James Burnham found it. Was this before William F. Buckley? Was that before William F. Buckley?
I mean, he was pretty much there from the beginning as well. It's just before his rise to prominence, before the Night of Long Knives for the John Birch Society. Which is really, which again, the use of the word John Birchers as a political insult has made itself back into American political parlance, which maybe we can get into, but
yeah, but someone pointed out the crab bucket. The crab bucket is more of like the ghetto or the institutionalized mindset. You know, it's like watching a prison video by Big Herc where he's like, you know, these guys, they're institutionalized, meaning that they hyper identify with their own subjugation. I think that's the crab bucket. The shark womb is much different in that you were actively fighting against everyone else maliciously in the crab bucket to sort of achieve a sort of ascendancy, to become sort of like, I'm going to be the empire, the emperor of dirt. I'm going to be king of the rotten. For corrosion of conformity fans, you'll get that lyric reference. But yeah, it's like you're becoming the king of all this, like this thing of ours. There's many cases, but to your point, Prude, I think that John Bircher, I think, getting back to this thing of ours being older than what we believe, the John Birch Society is a good example. I think that the John Birch Society, unfortunately, is flawed. Like, it was flawed in the sense of like all of its enemies were externalized into like communism. That was very like a foreign antigen to America. And I think like the American right wing, I mean, the last few weeks has been ablaze because of, you know, our good friend AA. You know, it's been ablaze with the discourse about who is at fault. Is it Europe? Is it America? Is it sort of like a few metastatic cells within America that's the problem that led to the global G-slur disco? I mean, what led to it, right? And so I think that this is a debate older than time itself. But the John Birch Society is a good model in the sense of it really was, I think, a first attempt at a modern right-wing avant-garde in America, in the sense of their theory, in a sense of the way that they did manage to have political influence, at least somewhat. And they were right about a lot of things. It wasn't just they were like, okay, yes, one of their founding assumptions was kind of wrong, or it wasn't that it was wrong. It was just that it was too placed out the outside, in my opinion. But I mean, they if you want to talk about like mainstream, even like normicon right-wing thinking, the John Birch Society basically was like one of the founding crafting mimetic entities that formed a lot of right-wing discourse. And I think that by studying John Birch, you will get a greater clarity into what this thing of ours is. So, I mean, that's my opinion.
And so maybe to break away from some of the vagueness of things, you know, as we mentioned, there has been a lot of debate and back and forth over the where the blame comes in from with academic agent in that discourse. But also more recently, there's been the issue of the Rizoma School being published in the American Mind, which Gio and I were sort of privy to how that played out. So this is, I will shamelessly plug, if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, don't worry. I wrote a Substack on this called Gatekeeping and Witch Trials. Basically, a while back, a woman by the name of Ashley Colby had written an article about more, to read the title exactly that she had written. She wrote, Selling Sexual Freedom in the American Mind, back in August of 2022 in the American Mind. And
are you gonna throw it up? Or
I'll throw it up.
Yeah, throw it up.
And our friend Martin, you know, great poster and writer that he is.
We're gonna put Martin. Yeah.
You know, he started doing some digging and had discovered that, you know, she had quite a few political past postings and agreements from like 2020 that showed like agreement with AOC, the lockdowns and things like that. Some of she tried her best to scrub this off the internet, but to show off, you know, things that she had liked. You got stuff like this.
Oh God. That guy, the Hassan. What's the guy's name? I hate that guy so much. The last one.
Medhi Hassan.
Medhi has. Yeah. Oh, what a ghoul. What a ghoul. Like that guy is just, oh man. What's the term for it that the British call like Morgoth? The skintellectual. I can't do the Morgoth voice.
Oh yeah, I think we're far too North American to ever do a northern accent. But you know, stuff that she had written on her old Medium blog and things like this that she had shown support for. And Martin was simply asking the question, like, well, how the hell did this come to happen to get published in sort of one of the more premier right-wing publications that's mainstream, like the Claremont Institute?
Yeah.
You know, and so she had blocked him on multiple accounts that he had made. You know, and lo and behold, on an alt account, he had made this Twitter space called The Groiping of Ashley Colby. And she decided...
You know what's funny? I think I probably came up with that term, groiping.
It's so... well, it's a great term.
I had this drawing I did back in 2017. I drew Emma Solkowitz in one of her like bondage performance things that she did after she like, you know, exposed her art project and like went to court and everything. Mattress Girl. You remember Mattress Girl? She became a quote unquote performance artist, right? I drew her, and behind her wasn't the dude that she was doing the performance with. It was a groiper. So I named it The Groiping of Emma Solkowitz. And I believe Miku actually tweeted a joke tweet about it. And I think I invented the term groiping. So I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But that photo, I literally have the book, the sketchbook where it's in. I could like pull it up if you want. Sorry, go ahead. It's from 2017, so 2018. Yeah.
Speaking culture into existence, as Im says. So look at you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this Twitter space was being hosted, and the question that was then like premierly asked was, you know, well, how did this happen? What are your political beliefs? And she decides to show up to this Twitter space, and she shows up not on her account, not as the Rizoma School, but on her husband's Twitter account, to this presence that had like Martin, Nightmare Vision, I think Mainstream Views was on there, Future Moldova Citizen. And it went on for about 3 hours. I caught the latter half of it, and it was just you know. And I will also
brutal.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
I'm going to link the article in the chat for you all to read as well. But it was an experience, to say the least. And you know, there was quite a bit of dirty laundry that was being hosted. Some of it was funny, like asking her to avow a certain
Austrian painter.
Austrian painter. But you know, there was this point that our friend Default Friend had made that I thought was very poignant to pull out. Was just one of the less intuitive lessons over the last few years is that people will go to any lengths to be validated by a hostile crowd, even if that crowd is antithetical to their beliefs. They may even start bending their worldview to the swarm. Why is that? The need for approval and validation escalates similarly to one's taste in pornography. And I thought that was pretty on point for this situation, because I mean, like, she went out of her way to find a space that had less than 50 people to, you know, basically, you know, either get validation or to confront her accusers. Which
that had 500 people near the end.
Oh yeah. It was that space recorded? No, but
well, there's probably one guy admitted to recording it, but we'll see in time.
Probably. Yeah, and Smeed was in there too. But I do know my mutual friend, Butter Yellow Lantern, on his personal Telegram had recorded the whole thing like a court stenographer. And
even had short type too, what they call it. Yeah, short set.
And you know, Patrick Casey points out this was a middle-aged woman defending her sort of rural retreatist homestead in Uruguay to a bunch of anime AVIs asking her to avow the Austrian.
Sorry. Listen. I say this with love. Okay. I say this with love. Now, I don't think Rizoma School, listen, she unblocked me, so now I have a more favorable view of her. Okay. But I think she's a good person, in my opinion. I don't think she's a bad person. I think that, you know, she's kind of like, put it this way, another life, she's like kind of, you know, corn-fed American. I would have married her. Put it that way. She was, you know. Anyways, well, she's not a bad person.
Yeah, even I said that. I hold her no personal ill will, nor wish to offend. But you know, the things about these basic first principle questions over progressive platitudes, there wasn't really an answer.
But the girl, listen to me. What are you doing? Listen? Here's the thing. Okay, now go up to that tweet from Kat. Go up to that tweet.
Yeah.
Okay. No, listen, babe. Listen. No, I know you're married. Okay, I know. No, I'm kidding. I'm gonna do the Sam Hyde Emma video from like 2018. No, listen. Okay, now I say this with utmost love and respect because Kat is like a sister to me, but Catherine knows about this intimately. This tweet right here, and I say this to know, and she knows she's listening right now. She knows that she knows this. Okay. She knows about bending your worldview to accommodate more radical elements in this thing of ours. And it's true. We all do this. Okay. But here's the thing. Me and Catherine had a great concept for it. She called it, I kid you not, she called it the Barry Weiss centrist containment zone. That's what these people need. The Barry Weiss centrist containment zone. Here's the thing. That can go either direction. Now, Unheard, like you said in your article, Unheard and City Journal, all the other places, they're very good for this. Okay, they're very good because they keep these people in a containment zone. They shelter them from the more, let's say, the antipods of the wild in this thing of ours, right? But also, they're very good for getting people accustomed to, at least in part, some ways of our thinking. I think they're good. I think Ashley Colby, I think Rhizoma School can be very productive and very, like, we could take her, we could mold her, and we could sort of say, oh, maybe like,
Gio,
these post-lefties.
Gio, are you saying you can save her?
Yes. If she needs guidance, She should never have done that, though. Here's the thing: she should have played the thing cool. And I would say this to her in private. I would say this in public as well. You could have played things cool. Could have calmed down a little bit. Could have unblocked people, but you could have also mediated criticism to the point where everyone's happy. Because the gripers, they'll leave you alone if they know that you're not coming in good faith. But if you do stuff like go on your husband's account to engage in a Twitter space that is basically trying to cancel you, let's face it, it was a show trial. It was like a struggle session. I think that these things could have been handled better. And I think that this is why we need
the anime AVI Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, exactly. Spanish Inquisition is a more base term than the struggle session. But the point being is that I think that the Barry Weiss containment zone is a cruel mistress sometimes. Like Barry Weiss is a cruel mistress. I know she's struggling to have kids now at 36, but she needs powerful Mediterranean DNA to never mind. No, sorry.
I thought it was Lev that simped for Barry Weiss.
Well, yeah, he got me into it. But so, but the point being is that I think that the containment zone exists for a reason. And whatever you can say about our enemies talking about radicalization, here's my opinion. It's not very good of those type of people to have connections to the frogs, in my opinion, because it just gives ammo to our enemies. But if you can cultivate a front face normie guard, not a vanguard, normie guard, the vanguard is behind them. And you have intermediaries like me, like Kat, people who are faces, but who are still have credibility, right? Maybe, well, Kat's up in the air. She knows this. But the point being is that you need intermediaries because you don't want these people like Ashley Colby to have any connection to the frogs whatsoever. All right? That's not their job. That's not their duty. Their job is something else. Their job is to get people interested. But when it comes to having connections to the frogs, very bad. She should have never done that. She should just move on and maybe like not acknowledge the griper, the imp jacks in her replies. And she should have moved on, because her job, if she truly believes, if she truly is no longer a Bernie person, if she truly is like this homesteading queen that wants to live trad, she should know that her purpose is not to be authentic to the frogs. Her purpose is something else. Okay, babe, that's your okay, babe. Like it's let Papa Gio guide you into this. No, listen, I know I'm being a condescending prick, but I truly do feel for her. I said this to people in private. I truly do feel sorry for her. I feel sorry because she went into a scenario she didn't know she was getting into. I think that's
well, I would argue for sure on that point. And I made this point here in the essay, and I'd like to read just this like paragraph, or actually there are two sections here. I'll read it shortly. Staunch anti-feminists on the right should not be surprised at all when women who take up the consequences of the sexual revolution view and deconstruct it from a feminist viewpoint. Louise Perry, Marion Harrington, and even Catherine D. are articulating from a point that no man really could write. The same applies to Colby, even if it is demonstrably left-wing in its first principles. Now, does this mean it should be published in the American Mind? My personal objection and opinion is no, that it shouldn't be. It read like something I'd see in City Journal or Unheard. So there you go.
Yeah.
But at the end, I leave with this, just saying, however, the point stands that men and women today are raised in the wake of feminism and the sexual liberation that came from it. The consequences have been a disaster, but many of us are still in the process of deconstructing that socialization. No one is going to be trad or right wing out of the, trad or right wing, but I think you're going to be, but I don't think that you're going to be able to shut up women either. Although how honest you are about that last one, I think is going to be more transgressive and edgy than anything else. But unless we're talking about feminist priests, then that shit needs to die. But I think the fact is that we do live in a consequences of this sort of socialization that is innately feminized, that is innately anti-masculine. We shouldn't be, I think, instantly hostile when women were going to speak up about it. Because I mean, there are parts of Louise Perry's book, where against the sexual revolution, that the passages that I've read, they do sound very sort of like Camille Pagula-esque, but at the same time, I'm like, well, that makes sense, considering where we come from.
You have to realize, like, oh, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
No, you have to realize, like, I was listening to Louise, and here's the thing, like, I say this with utmost respect. God, all the best women are married. I can't believe in this thing about, well, except for apparently King Sandfish says he's going for a schizo e-girl. Zoomer tops 80. So we'll see how that works out. Look at this. Gio talking about a struggle session with a married woman. No, please. Please. I would never do that. But no, Louise Perry, I mean, here's the thing. Louise Perry is a force for good, but you have to realize that
Perry, Mary Harrington, all of them are. I would never dare insult them professionally or personally. What they've done is good work.
Same with Annie Slatz, my good friend, who I'm, maybe I will get on the show one day. But I think that when I was listening to her interview with Alex Kashuda, another cat of a different variety. I think that a lot of the sort of feminist priors come out when it comes to issues that are integral to the online, not just the online, but like any sort of right-wing politics, any normie conservative politics in general, with that one particular issue that was quite relevant last month, with that one particular court decision that you know what I'm talking about, right? That they're always going to be skittish on that issue, even though Louise Perry is married. I believe she has a child now. It's like, you got to realize that there are certain things within the sort of feminist DNA that you're never going to pry from them. And I feel that the answer isn't to like sort of skis out and be like, no girls allowed. But you have to sort of realize that these people belong. And I know this sounds condescending by saying they belong in the containment zone, but I think that their purpose is not to be as authentic. Their purpose is not to be the right-wing version of a cool girl. There's plenty of schizo e-girl that posts, spinny wheels for that, okay? They're not the right-wing cool girl. I'm sorry. Okay, not every content creator, I hate that term, not every woman content creator on the political right can be Alex Kashuda. There's only one Alex Kashuda. Okay, we all love our girl Alex Kashuda. But the point being is that there can only be one. The purpose of Louise Perry or Mary Harrington isn't to be the cool girl. The purpose is to, and Annie Slatz does this very well, by the way, even though she's garnered a ton of enemies. Is that the purpose is you can allow forces that can frustrate normal orthodoxy to an extent, as long as we have an agreement with each other that the purpose of people like Mary Harrington or Louise Perry, or even to an extent Catherine, is that they're not, like, what I mean by right-wing curl girl is that they don't have to regurgitate our ideas or our ideology, but you can sort of keep them at an arm's length, in my opinion. But you don't have to like freak out, but you just have to realize that yes, it's true, we share the same struggles, but they're not going to 100% conform to what the frogs believe in. And that's okay. But as long as you don't let them become the centerpiece, they're the crown jewel. The crown jewel is not nearly a centerpiece. It's the whole crown that counts. So the big concern of people like Martin and our friends is that they're taking up too much space in terms of actually crafting ideas, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. But here's the thing. This is where the original alt-light e-girls failed. They failed spectacularly. Because let's face it, a lot of them were kind of dumb, and a lot of them kind of got led by a stick. And, they weren't up to snuff. But when you have people like Mary Harrington and Louise Perry, they're of a different breed. I mean, these people have actual brains in their heads. Listen, I'm not subtweeting any alt-later, YouTuber that has a pretty face and says talking points that were on 4chan 5 years ago. But it's like, the point being is that when you have people that are a bit more serious, you have to contend with the fact that they're not going to be 100% on our side, but that they still are subject to the same rival forces that are basically trying to destroy us all. And that alliance, yes, it's true that that needs to be questioned in terms of being viable, but that alliance is there for a reason. And so I think that because people are so jaded at the fact that a lot of these e-girls in the alt-light and alt-right, to an extent, of yesteryear, that turned out disastrously, I think people are rightly concerned. But I think that with people, and I could be wrong, but people like Louise Perry and Mary Harrington, they are of a different stock. And Gio broke out the e-girl Rolodex for this. yeah. I'm actually well, never mind.
It's an important resource, Patrick, because I don't know any of them.
No, but the thing is, they're an important resource, but you have to realize what type of resource they are. They're not going to be the center of any right-wing discourse, obviously. But I think that if you were to provide a sort of firewall between the heart of what this thing of ours is and what they can present to the public, at least to the disaffected normie who sees the flaws in things, this was tried before, but it failed. But now we have a chance again. But you got to realize that, I hate to say it, a lot of these women, unfortunately, as soon as you start to like push hard on them, they'll run away, at least in part. I think that I don't want to say it, but like some of them, what we've seen with the Rizoma thing, you gotta kind of treat them with kid gloves a little bit, but you have to make sure that they, there's everything. What does the Taoists say? Everything between heaven and earth has a place, is what I'm trying to say. And you have to realize that place, because it didn't work out before. Because let's face it, a lot of very lonely anons, they sort of were thinking with not their brains, with their other kind of head. And they're like, oh my God, a pretty e-girl is saying the same ideas that I have. Oh my God, a pretty e-girl is reading Julius Evola. It's like, then you thrust them into leadership positions, and then does not work out very good. The point being is that you have to avoid that at the same time, but you have to create more of and which I think is, someone like Mary Harrington's good for this, is that they're a bit more sophisticated than the average right-wing e-celeb in terms of like the e-girls of old. But at the same time, you got to realize that they're not going to 100% conform to what you believe in. And I think that you have to sort of take the good with the bad. In other words, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling right now, Prue, but it just worked out. I'm pumped up. It's just, I think that I'm trying to navigate a minefield here, and I think I need your help right now.
It is a minefield. That's why I wrote all of this down, because I was just like, I want to talk about this, because I thought that this was an episode that I think we're going to see more of in the future. Just in part because I do think that there are going to be more attention being focused this way, because a softer image, I hate to do marketing 101, but like a softer image for some of the more brutal truths about society tends to sell. This is why I think that, Tucker may have chosen, this is not to say this was purely done on looks, but like if you want to see someone who's like been ravaged by, say, for instance, like the transgender thing, Helena's a very excellent example of that. And you want those kind of voices firsthand to talk about it. And unfortunately, that comes with, at the front and center, you have these individuals that may not share your political orthodoxy. And that's why you need, oh my God.
Based e-girls have never been tried. These e-girls will work. Gio, use women as meat shields. Oh boy.
But I mean, this is a point that I quoted Charlamagne.
Listen, Helena's a pretty face that you could put up there, and she's smart, and she knows what she's talking about, and that's why they rabidly hate her so much.
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you want to see the
cruelty of these animals, to bring up more Twitter drama, the cruelty of like the transgender lobby and their animals is that they had that viral video of those guys, of that one poor woman who had said, I've been on T for like 5 years.
In Norwooded her.
And was basically, and was bald. It was Norwooding. And they tore her apart, they tore her apart for being, just ugly, and not the consequences of what this terrible ideology and mutilation does to people. And that's the real problem. Now, this isn't to say that I may differ from Geo in saying that we need like the real right wing e-girl's never been tried, but um, what I will say though is that I think that you do need to have and this is really the big subject that we wanted to talk about today was gatekeeping,
Yeah.
because this has been something that everyone and their mother has been asking since this had happened, amidst other things. And there was a point that Charlemagne had made a few weeks ago that I truly enjoy and recommend to everybody, called "The Real Problem of the Dissident Right." And there's only one issue that I have with it, and I'll bring it up in a bit. But he says that the dissident right has a real problem, and that problem is that the people who follow and fund us and the people whom we actually want to reach are two entirely different audiences.
That's a brilliant point, by the way.
And the audiences that we are connected to is filled with too many people of dismal character who most of us would otherwise want nothing to do with. Obviously, we regard ourselves as normal. That's vast majority of the rest of the people in our countries who have been propagandized and bullied into believing radically self-harming ideas that at the highest level can be described as egalitarian. Nevertheless, the broader public would see as highly abnormal if they were to glimpse at us directly, which is why hiding your power level tends to be a social necessity. With that being said, this is really only due to the lack of respectability. To overcome this gap, the right needs to establish respectability. The only real feedback I would say is that I don't know how monolithic the dissident right is. I mean, that's really a catch-all label for everything, to heterodox, to when people tell you to read the room in sort of that lefty tone police manner. Because I feel like if I were to put maybe you and four other guys in the dissident right, say Millennial Woes or Morgoth or even Patrick Casey, there might be 5 or 6 different approaches to a certain issue.
Yeah,
and so I wouldn't say it's monolithic, but I mean, there is the issue of, but I mean, at the same time, respectability. Yes, I think that's why you need to have those sort of face fagged intermediaries, like ourselves. Although I'm a terrible intermediary, but at the same time, you also need the anons. You cannot get rid of them. One of the reasons why the dissident right, or whatever whatever the next label is going to be, is the point that Astral made very clearly when he was still on Twitter. Is that no matter how many of these points make it to the mainstream, no matter how many amazingly based interlocutors you have, the mainstream will never do what is necessary. And so that's why the constant push to move things further in that rightward shift or nudge is essential, both from anons and people like us.
100%. And I think that when it comes to the anons, I mean, the anons are a source of constant energy and idea creation because they are uninhibited. Even like right now, the fact that I'm not in camera means that even though I know psychologically that still does something to you, you can speak a bit more freely. But I think that there are limits to anonymity, obviously, in terms of a movement. But at the same time, I think that to counter signal anonymity at this stage is not very good. It's a sign of something wrong. I think like there's a lot of people that are very afraid of like the anons because they're like, I understand. Okay. I understand the point that the message can be more authenticated by putting your name and face out there. For a variety of reasons, people do this. But at the same time, I feel that even though you don't have very much to lose, you still instinctually censor yourself because your name and face is out there. And I think that the anons are correct in that regard. And so I have a sort of on the fence view with it. I think that eventually it would be nice if more people could like come out of the shadows, but at the same time, we're not there yet, obviously. And we're still at the point where people have had their lives ruined. Like even recently, a very, very, very close friend of mine, who many of you know, was outed by a vicious ghoul that lives to dox us and harass us. And I know he's listening to this right now. And by the way, I love you, brother. Yeah, this happened just recently, a few weeks ago. And and I think that it's, we're still at that point where people's lives can be ruined because of it. But the hope is, the millenarian hope is that one day all the anons can come out of the shadows and can live in a society where they will not be harassed and they will not have food ripped off of their table. Because here's the thing, a lot of those people, yes, it is true. A lot of them are NEETs or whatever, like myself, and a lot of them are whatever. But there are a lot of people I know who are anonymous, who have like lives, who have like wife and kids, and who have jobs. A lot of them are a lot of them are like engineers. You'd be fascinated how many engineers are in the dissident right. It's a meme for a reason, because it's true. And so I think
that was the thing that
yeah.
even came up in that space, was when she was asking, Ashley had mentioned the issue about, like, angry young men and wife and kids. And Martin just kind of like shut her down. It was just like, yeah, I have a wife and children. I'm not in my like late teens or
Yeah,
20s,
Martin does actually. I can
Um,
vouch for this. Yes.
and so it's and there is a border and sort of that fence thing, because in some essence, yes, it does mean that when you're anonymous, it's a lot easier to be transgressive and to be predatorial and to do what is necessary to say whatever you want and be the king of crap mountain or whatever. But at the same time, I'm trying not to swear, but at the same time, there is an importance to have those ideas facilitated and brought up to a much larger audience that are in the mainstream. And I mean, you'd be surprised, right? I talked to Jeremy Carl a while back with regards to this, and out of the blue, I had mentioned the issue of BioLeninism, and he's like, "Yeah, I read Spandrel's blog, and I like I follow what he says on Urbit." And I was just like, oh, okay. So like these ideas do get out there, which is certainly a good sign. But but I mean, if he's read it and they don't address that issue, then clearly you also have the fact that they
Well, we'll
won't do
get
what's
to that.
necessary.
Yeah, we'll get to the part of not addressing things, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, there's plenty more other things. I mean,
Yeah.
this is just one instance of the gatekeeping type drama question that I think we're gonna
But
deal with
if
for a while.
radfems, if they're worried about, like, they're because politically the left, like, basically made them homeless. So if radfems, if they're concerned with angry young men, misogyny posting, I mean, they could, some of them could do something about it. They could. Never mind. Never. I mean, we could get some radfem GFs out of this, but anyways, never mind. Hey, listen, I'm an angry young man. Okay, so my DMs are open. Okay, I'm an angry young incel man. So it's portrait of Chudjak as a young man. But no, I'm
it's Spooktober,
It's Spooktober. Yeah, but no, but I think that no, it's true. I think that when it comes to this question of authenticity is always going to be the issue. I think that a lot of different groups have cults of authenticity, right? This is the Adorno concept. America has a very particular one around a certain form of culture in pop culture, with a certain demographic. But by the way, Adorno, he actually addressed this with jazz music, which is kind of based actually. But even the right wing, I think, has cults of authenticity, that there are certain topics where if you start counter signaling on, it's not going to work out for you. And I think that we create these things for a reason. They're there because they are a sign of authenticity. Now, because I'm a face, I can't go as hardcore as I want to. But even though I'm not like 100% on board with certain aspects of the E-right, like I'm not 100% like, Nietzschean eugenicist, whatever, I can still find these things interesting and at least in part agree with certain aspects of the E-right that I don't normally agree on. I think that's why I've lasted for so long. And I think that as soon as you start freaking out and being like, oh my God, we gotta touch grass, guys, that's kind of a sign of insecurity. And I think that for many years I've struggled with this myself, in the sense of like the need for not just the need for authenticity, but the need for legitimacy and what institutions can provide you. And so the Geo of 2017-18 is very different than the Geo of now. When I first got out of academia, when I did my master's, the Geo now sort of says that, well, we're never going to truly gain legitimacy the way that people think we can. That's never going to happen. So we have to create things that are a buffer zone between mainstream forms of legitimacy and other things, and things that we create for ourselves. And so, for example, Tucker Carlson is very good at this, in that he's using a legacy institution against itself in a lot of ways. Whether those, stuffy old guys at Fox News realize that, but, I said this before, that the age demographic on Fox News probably goes down to the 20-year-olds. And if the teenagers, as soon as Tucker Carlson goes on, and as soon as Sean Hannity comes back on, it goes back up to the boomers, right? Like that's for a reason.
Yeah.
So I think that you have to think, and this is what people have been saying. This is people like Joel Davis and people like Keith Woods. You have to think of these things in terms of systems theory. You have to think of these things systematically. You have to think of like, what is the institutional role of certain things in certain entities if you're serious about it? Because if you just want to shit post, that's fine. And I 100% support shit posting. But I think that when you're trying to create something, we're at the very early beginning of something, I feel. And it's not going to be like tomorrow we're going to like pull some levers and then Based World is going to happen. Based World is 1,000-year project, in my opinion. It's going to be our millenarianism. Okay. It's going to be the 1,000-year. Never mind. 1,000 years something.
Well, I think it's one of the
Based
things
World's an idea. It's not a reality materially right now, but it's an idea that propels us forward. Sorry, go ahead, Prue, before I start.
I mean, yeah, before. But
it'll last 1,000 years, though. That's what I'm saying. It'll last 1,000 years.
There you go, Gio. Well, I think at the very end of my very first video I had ever uploaded 2 years ago was that that I view any sort of project that wants to change things in a big sense of mindset or politics. You have to view it, I think, in some form or lens as the Reconquista. This is that.
Oh yes, exactly.
That took nearly 800 years.
Yeah,
and these things I don't think will be in your lifetime. My idea is that if locally the politics that I can wield or influence, that if I can slightly make the world a better place, that I can plant the vine and fig tree that my grandkids will sit under, then my goal I think will be to be accomplished. I think that helps a lot in that regard. And yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say really quickly, like, it's something that So said to me. By the way, forthcoming episode in Content Minded, a few weeks it'll drop. Really, one of my amazing, one of the best episodes I've ever recorded. So said something when I talked about. I said, "Well, Based World is 1,000-year project." He's like, "Yeah, but you know what, Gio? You never know, because it's like what Stalin was. It Stalin or was it Lenin that said?" Sometimes history takes 1,000 years to do nothing, and sometimes 1,000 years happens in a day. Was that Lenin?
Yeah, Lenin had said that about in some weeks. In sometimes a decade, nothing happens, but in a week, a decade can pass.
Yeah, exactly. In a week, in a day, a decade can pass. Meaning that, and he said that Trump was really one of these moments where 1,000 years happened in a day. And I think that we will see years from now the significance of that election. And I think that maybe we're just pumping ourselves up because we're part of this like 2016 thing. But I think that if you really look at the consequences, probably Trump was a watershed moment. Maybe not Trump the man, but Trump the idea, or Trump the entity, the egregore. That was really this sort of next, what would you call it? This sort of, paradigm shift, but more of like a singularity hole from which all of history can filter through, that is radically different from what had preceded it. I think that this is true. And I think that if these moments keep happening, maybe our grandchildren will realize Based World. Well, who knows? And I think that, the thing is, it's global, in my opinion. Because a lot of our enemies, they write these, pseudo-academic treatises about, there's a global far-right takeover. And it's like, it's true, there is a global far-right takeover. Not to say that there is, but I'm saying that I think that other countries throughout the world are starting to experience a lot of different uncertainties. And with that comes, like you were saying, a Reconquista ideal. It's not that we are, there's a revolutionary aspect to it, but it's more of restoration would be a better term for it. But it's complicated, because this restoration that we're aiming for, it's not 100% repeating the forms of the past. This is impossible. But it's going to create a restorative order, I feel. At least I hope. That is something different than the past, but at the same time honors that which came before. Which, I mean, by the way, if you look at the counter Enlightenment, like for example, in the work of art, or like the counter Restoration, they were using newer forms of thinking, of writing, of artwork, but it was still honoring something deeper than the massive upheavals in society, you know, whether it be the 15th century, the 16th, 17th, 18th, like, you know what I mean? I think that this is the model. It's not a linear thing totally. It's not a regression, but it's something else entirely. And I think that that is what I mean by based world, or well, whatever Peter Nemitz means by it. But you know what I mean? Like, he came up with the term. But the point being is that, yes, I think that this is a restorative project, but it's restoring something unique at the same time. This is sort of like the cosmic, the sort of lesson that Nietzsche touched upon with the eternal return, is that it's never eternal return of the same. It's eternal return of something different, but it's still a return nevertheless. It's sort of, it's hard to describe. I mean, you'd have to be a theory celt to really like get into the nitty gritty, but does that make sense, Prude? I don't know.
Yeah, to an extent. And the thing I would add to it, though, is the importance that this cannot be an explicitly online space.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest issue that that I think our friend Stained Haynes puts out the most of, is that, you know, his concept that he's been going off about notice or move on, or notice and move on. And he's gotten a lot of flack for it. But I thought, you know, and the reason why I read his tweets that really do get at me is that, oh, they do kind of sting about how cultural stuff can happen and things like that. And it really does. My biggest litmus test about a lot of things, both in politics, but even for, you know, communities that are not, you know, just total shit libs, like the big writing scene that we're seeing right now, was that, you know, one of my biggest litmus tests is that, are you, do you support or do you create things, or are you anathema to it?
Yeah.
Creation is the biggest aspect of it all. And, you know, it's why I do try to tell a lot of people all the time. I think that's been my biggest thesis of 2022 on this channel, has been talking about how to de-atomize yourself and to sort of purge yourself of that nihilism that sort of comes with the perpetually online doom scrolling and other things, is because that a lot of this stuff does require you to actually create, or to take action, or to participate. You know, it's fun being a part of things. It's funny to see the shit posts, or to tweet behind 5 layers of irony. You don't know who you are anymore. But at the same time, you know, it does kind of require you to go out and to put a little work in, as the lefties like to say, believe it or not. I kind of do agree with that phrase, doing the work. I think Oliver says that quite well. And the big issue I think about that is like, well, you actually have to do some things about that. So if that means going to like your city council meeting and knowing what the hell's going on, or even being politically literate about where funding goes and things like that, that does help a lot to know the system of where you live. I mean, my county GOP chair now's, you know, he only knows about Orrin McIntyre's existence because I printed out a Substack of his and I showed it to him at the last meeting. And so it certainly does matter in that regard. And now he follows him on YouTube. So there's things that there are things that you can actually do. And I think that that's important, in the same way that you can make meaningful connections, you know, like if someone's got like, you know, just recently, I'm not going to name names here, but it's just to get yourself out of the milieu of things. But it's just like, hey, I know someone who's currently dealing with this like weird environmental issue. And I was just like, oh, I know somebody through Twitter that, you know, actually knows how to do that. And so, bam, I connected those two together and communicating. It requires to identify, you know, how can this tool online, you know, because it's a movement, but it's also a tool. It kind of has like a wave particle duality, like light. That how can you make it effective for actual, you know, IRL praxis that doesn't get you in trouble, like say what happened in 2017, or more recently in January of last year. Those things are really important. And I think that whatever the Schelling point might be, I think that there has been a move towards, you know, the publishing scene, especially. There's been a big move towards the and I think this is a good segue to the other issue that we've recently seen, is the issue of, you know, being healthy and fit, our friend Raw Egg Nationalist has really done a lot of good work. Plus the Tucker Carlson's original thing is like 4 mutuals now that have been there. It's sort of a nexus. And yeah, so that stuff really it matters in a way that the online is great, but it can also serve as an effective tool for whatever praxology you'd like to do in the real world. And again, if you're anathema to creation outside of the digital space, then that's a big issue, because you actually do have to create online. There are people that are always just like, oh, get married and have kids. And I'm like, yes, you should. And you should also improve the world around you and have community and try and facilitate all this high trust stuff so you're not an asocial schizoid. Because that's a problem I think that a lot of people on the internet have, is because we become so atomized and deracinated. A lot of us are those asocial schizoids that are waiting for their virgin trad wife to marry them. And some people find that meme to be a bit of
call me out like that.
Well, some people find that meme to be a bit of a straw man, but the more I see Twitter, the more I get concerned how much of that is just layers upon layers of irony, or that's just the weird online idealization that we have. And I think that's the big project from here on out, is how to get away from that.
There is, I think that you have to realize, okay, this is a little bit of a rant here. There are a lot of quality women on Twitter. I hate to say, I know it's like the meme of like the e-girl, whatever, but unfortunately a lot of them are taken. None of them are meant for Geo, and it's terrible. But no, there's a lot of quality women on Twitter. I think that there was something my good friend Piffy said on Twitter. By the way, shout out to Piffy. He said, have you ever mentioned me on your show before? I go, yeah, I think I have. He said this tweet once, I think it was in response to some irony leftist. He said like, oh no, it was a response to me. It was when I asked about like, why do you pick your favorite waifu? Like, why does it represent like who you are? Right? Like to the anime people. And he said, it's because this particular anime character reminds me of this innocence that I've lost and that I could never regain, but it's like a symbol of hope that innocence is still inside of me. And I think that a lot of people that end up in like far right spaces, unironically, like not like exactly what our enemies think of it, but I think that we are dealing with a lot of broken people because we live in a broken society. I mean, I myself am a broken person. Okay, I'm not going to first admit this. And I think that it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength in the sense that you have the ability to gain self-knowledge, but also gain knowledge of the world around you, and to use that and to mold yourself in a way that is almost like a Nietzschean becoming. It almost is like a transcendence of your own self. It is a self-overcoming. And I think that is what ultimately the point is of people like Rog Nationalist and others, is that when you enter these spaces, you are, it should be this way, although unfortunately we're lagging in this, but there's signs that it could go this way, is that you should have a standard for yourself. You should have a standard of engrossing yourself in certain literature and certain paths towards improving how you look and who you are. And I think that it's ultimately, you should be helpful to your fellow Anon, but at the same time, you should also realize that we have these standards for a reason and we should enforce them. And if that means that certain people are left behind, then leave them behind. But I think that you have to realize that we're not dealing with the optimal situation, and we're not dealing with optimal, I hate to say it, but sometimes we're not dealing with optimal people, because most of us have been subject to a fundamental brokenness. And so it's not that we can have like this collection of broken souls hovering around together, to quote The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, huddling together for warmth on the edge of the Tumid River, not feeling, not thinking, not looking at each other, meaning that the sort of the lost souls at in the dying world are on the river Styx, and they're sort of trying to go to the other side. Like that's one of my favorite poems in existence, by the way, the Hollowed Men. So the point being is that we're all huddling together for warmth. We're all broken people. We're all broken souls huddling together. But at the same time, there is something to that can be a source of strength rather than weakness. It's not like what our enemies think, where it's like you're all weak and you're all bitter and you're all resentful and you're usually young white incels that hate each other and hate the world and hate strong affirmative black bodies or whatever crap that they come up with, right? It's like you're an incel because you hate women and you're, a loser. And it's like, you've been radicalized in these online spaces. It's like, yeah, we have been radicalized in these online spaces. It's true. But that's not a source of that can be a source of great strength if you are given the proper guidance by people who have come before you, who are just as broken and who can give you the tools of self-discovery and of self-mastery. And I think that's what the E-Right needs to preach about, needs to focus on. We need to have a young boy system where people coming in, they can only lurk and they can only explore for a time period. And they have to be, you have to take these younger men, these Zoomers, under your wing, and you have to give them the proper guidance. And I think that we need to cultivate more of that. That is the only way it's going to happen. Because right now, when it comes to this, the picture of the institutions, yes, that needs to be worked on. And yes, that eventually you want to get people in leadership positions, but that's not happening right now. I mean, there's signs of it happening. I mean, God willing, Blake Masters wins his seat, right? I mean, Canada, we're done for, but in America, it's more likely to happen. Based world is more likely to come in America. But I think that, for the time being, in a subjugated position, because we have to realize we are in a subjugated position, you can only focus on yourself, really. And the big institutional goals will come eventually if you believe and if you work hard enough and if you get these messages to the mainstream. I'm frankly shocked that they haven't canceled Tucker Carlson right now. They haven't canceled him so far. That Fox News hasn't canned him. I'm shocked. Maybe it's because of the money or whatever, but I think that, people that are counter signaling this sort of focus on health and wellness and philosophy and so forth, I think that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That for now, we have to think small in order to think big, in my opinion. So a very based America would annex Canada. 100% agree. But I mean, but it has to be based America. I wouldn't want to be annexed by Sleepy Brandon. You know what I mean? It would just be more of the same. So yeah.
Well, and this is the thing that this was a video that I had talked about a while back, where it was the issue of mentorship, and also just the fact that we do live in a broken world where there's little self-control or impulse control, and that men are dying for that, and I'm going to sound like a boomer, Jordan Peterson or whatever, but people are dying for father figures.
Yeah.
That when you have YouTube accounts like Dad, How Do I, or How to Dad, that have quite a bit of a following, like over 1 million subs plus. And I get it, like DIY and things like that are really helpful in that regard. But it gets really weird when people are asking like their favorite politics guys about life advice and things like that. It's different I would argue it's different than, say, 15 or 16-year-olds using their mother's credit card for the issue of Hassan Piker, super chats or things like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't BreadTube. But I mean, I think that also what happens is that there are men our age that are being asked questions about life advice and things like that. And, I'm actually going to upload my speech from the February event pretty soon, so you can see what I'm talking about more in full. But it's just like, I can tell you what not to do, in regards to, say, educational pathways or things about romantic relationships and things like that. But it does illustrate the sort of dire straits that a lot of aspects of that we're dealing with, and I think that that's a big problem that we're going to have to learn how to tackle, is to think small and to work us on the self-improvement and the self-health, because that's the big thing that I've noticed in the takeaway in sort of this raw egg nationalist discourse is that, well, the health part really is a big chunk of it, because, not to sound like the clean your room guy, but it's always about, it's important because, well, a big chunk of the system wants you atomized, deracinated, and basically chemically neutered by the health system, which is pretty depressing in that regard. And I think that that's an important focus on, because you know what? And I talked about this on Telegram earlier when I was reading Patrick Casey's article. I was just like, I see as the right-wing bodybuilder thing from BAT very much as an online Twitter phenomenon. But then again, those could be the very ripped guys I see at political rallies or meetings that could be anons that are posting abs on Twitter. So I don't know, right? Because you'll never know unless you know and ask them. But even then, and it's just that's one of the bigger things that I think that we're going to see this focus on, is a lot more focus on body and mind. Because I mean, if you read an edition of Man's World, and I mean, you've been in it. Stained Haynes has been asked to write something for it. Our friend Columba has written stuff on there. and it's really good stuff, both in terms of capturing these tales of adventure and masculinity, but also they're deeply rich in historical knowledge and academic rigor. And I think that that's a good balance that needs to be struck here. Because, yeah, it's great to talk about, you know, how many based anime edits that we can do about things or reference.
Make them look like a Nuremberg rally.
Yeah. You know, things like
those
that.
are great though, but you need that though. They're creative, they're fun, they're innovative. Like,
well, yeah,
there's always
a place for shit posting.
Yeah.
But there's a place for a shit ton of other things that I think are a little more important, because I don't think shit posters are never going to go away. Let's not kid ourselves. That's never going to disappear.
No, they're eternal.
That's eternal. The anime spinny wheel edits are eternal, but you know, I think we do need more and more of the focus on the other side of things, which I think is a pretty good transition to talk about the recent bit with Raw Egg Nationalist.
Yes.
This kind of had started, and I'm going to start out now. I'm an outside observer. I don't think I've ever claimed to belong to any explicit camp.
You're not a Bapian?
I mean, I like BAP, but I wouldn't call myself a Bapian. In the same way
you don't have the delts to be a Bapian.
I don't. I have a runner's body. Let's not kid ourselves. But
you have an otter body.
Oh man. But you know, I sort of reaffirmed that I'm an outside observer. I'm friends with many people. I have mutuals that are blocked with one another. You know, it's just sort of an interesting place to be in. And the Anons are here to bully the Giannises. Frasier only on SNES says. I've actually been rewatching Frasier. It's my comfort television show.
Nice, but, amazing,
great sitcom. But you know, the issue here is that yes, Connor, I'm aware of it. I know, but
my one friend, she called Prude a mousy brunette, male equivalent. So
yeah, well,
that really got under your skin.
We can't all be winners.
Oh man.
But yeah, no, this is also this is a good point. Shit posting is a pastime, not an identity.
Yeah. But some people do it really well to the point where it could be an identity. Yeah.
There are some people where it's more of a you'd think that we'd have a based graphic design company that focuses on this stuff.
We should, though. We should, like, Reagan Lodge, you need to get on this, bro. I mean, you need to team up with Nuke Telly. Yeah. No, me and Patrick were talking about this, how it truly is like one of the most innovative like art forms that the E-Rate has produced in terms of like Hyperborean edits. And, you know, from the very ancient foundations in Nobody TM up to the vanguard of like Nuke Telly and Biggie Slonk and others, up until these recent like Zoomer ones that are getting like so like crazy schizo. And like I saw this one of Baron Trump the other day where he's like going to be like the next like Hyperborean Austrian painter, and it was amazing. It was incredible. Like he's driving his like 80s like decked out like Lambo car and he's like got like some like Lana Del Rey looking, like, I mean skinny Lana Del Rey looking girl on his side, and he's like blonde hair, and he's got the prison tats of a certain prison gang, you know, starts with the A, ends with a B. And and he's going to like a Nuremberg rally in Valhalla. It's amazing. I love I have to find this edit. It's hilarious. I mean, oh, by the way, Janny, strike down in the chat. We have, speaking of e-girls, Tinder
Well, here's the other thing too, right? Is and there was this post about sort of like the doom scrolling mindset I'm trying to find. The other thing too, and this is something that I'm writing about, is that there is it's also a lot of our music taste in things like this.
Yeah.
Where you know, I've talked about it before. Like a lot of the music that I liked growing up that I still do is very much that shit-lib millennial stuff that you would have heard out of like Garden State, or even the last stream we did about 500 Days of Summer. A lot of that music I still like. And yeah. But the more I looked at it recently, and I got onto this kick of this new musician, because sometimes the algorithm throws me a banger. And I was listening to like Will Wood songs, and all of a sudden I was like, oh wow, this is some like really depressing music stuff. And I realized all of that does is just like really condition you to be this disgusting shit-lib loser that really wants to make you a male feminist and just be like, well, I'm afraid of intimacy, I'm afraid of all this. It's just like, no one needs to be Zach Braff. Throw all this shit out the window. So like I've thrown my like half of the things I listen to in my library have been deleted.
You gotta start listening to some Pantera if you want to be a real man, you know, because it's true. Like,
well, I do. This is the thing. It can be things from like the Decemberists, and then I have a whole other album where it's just like Pantera, Sabaton, Metallica. It's just all sorts of stuff where it's like that. And but I'm like, okay, the things that I listened to growing up, that it's a vulgar display of how to condition somebody, because music makes the mood. And the same reason why on YouTube nowadays there's a million different sort of like these Wojak thumbnails of like 2 hours of like jazzy doomer music or things like that. And it's just like, well, who the hell is this for? And it's just it's that realization that this is to put you in a mood in the same way that both Catholic, Orthodox, and even some evangelical like YouTube channels or meme groups have 2 hours of Gregorian chant to make you listen, or like to encourage you to go to like Trinitine Mass or whatever, so music is also another political battleground that definitely needs to be
but I mean, but it's true though, because I think, like I was talking about this with Ace, that Pantera, I think, was the milestone because it truly was metal, but it was more affirmative and positive. Like, it wasn't the sort of early 90s, like a lot of trends in death metal. It had, I think, especially for like young, like kids of like aggressive European descent, it had like a very positive, especially like if you're in the South, it had like a lot of that hallmark of like aggressive, but yet positive, but yet it truly is like solar masculine type of music. Yeah. Someone mentioned Primal Concrete Sledge. I love the live version they did with Zach Wilde. Primal Concrete said, like, then he goes into the solo, like, but no, I think that like even today I was listening to Rise, and like, look at the lyrics. This is lyrics that will inspire the online right here. We got no time to lose. Your news is old news. Hate this, hate me, hate this. Right approach to the wrong. It's time to spread the word. Let the voices be heard. All of us, one of us, all of us dominate this world, this mother effing world. Mass prediction, unification, breathing life into our lungs. Every creed and every kind to give us the depth of strength taught when you were young to hate one another. It's time to have a new reign of power. Make pride universal so no one gives in. Turn our back on those who oppose. I mean, come on. This right here needs to be the rallying call of the online right to rise. I mean, I know it may sound a bit corny, but it's like, my God, like, listen to those lyrics. All of us together, standing against those who oppose, a newfound reign of power. I mean, come on. This is Nietzschean right here. This is Faustian. This is Faustian, man. But anyways, go ahead. Well, to get rid of all that sappy, millennial hipster music. I mean, come on. I mean, okay, some of it was pretty good, I gotta admit, but like, I mean, my God, Prue, what are you doing? You listen. If you listen to Pantera, your gains will be better. You'll last longer. You'll hit the gym harder. It's true. Music is an auditory weapon, and sometimes music is a psyop, and you're psyoping yourself. And sometimes you have to counteract that with plugging in the right form of music, the right wavelength. Music is a spiritual thing for an obvious reason. Like, man, Pantera. Anyways, go right when retro synthwave got kind of I agree, Reagan Logic got kind of overdone.
But I pointed this out while you were on your musical bit there. If you're still wanting to know what he's up to, he has his own page on findmyfriends.net, so you can see what work he's doing.
Who is Zerius?
Well known for his music and putting certain powerful speeches into
Zeri. Okay, now, oh man, no wonder they had to censor him so hard. See, think of it. Oh, we'll talk about the AJ thing a little bit. Listen, X. I know Pantera just ripped off Exhorter. I know, okay, I know it's true, and in some ways, Exhorter is a bit superior. But I mean, for the masses, Pantera, you know what I mean? Like, kayfabe. Okay, I know. It's just, I know they used to be a glam band, but it's, for the masses. Got to think of it that way. So, sorry, this is just like a little, hidden baseball within metal. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you had mentioned it slightly though, but I mean, that's the other thing too, is that $1 billion. Good Lord, for Mr. Jones.
Yeah. Will he actually pay that though? Do you think? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't. Let's state the obvious out of the way. Was definitely a political show trial.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't know how effective his counsel was. I mean, imagine
his counsel, they ruined it for him.
Well, yeah, I'd imagine that he would appeal on the basis of ineffective assistance of counsel. But if they show trialed you the first time, you better get it into a good appellate court. Plus, there's also a cap on how much money he can pay out in Texas. I don't think he'll pay the full $1 billion. It is for show and headlines, as Michael points out. I think the cap is, I think it's either 15 to 25%, if I recall correctly. It depends on. Well, this is in civil, so I'm not too sure. I know criminal, but it's still a significant. It's meant. It has a chilling effect. Is what it was for.
That's the whole point.
The whole point was to illustrate that what it was the same thing that happened in the trials that a certain well-coiffed burger appreciator had once had, where the whole point was.
Oh yeah, I didn't pay that money. No.
Well, no, he didn't pay that money. But what was the leading cry to make the fine so high? It was to never make sure they could financially do what they're doing.
So the hairdo can never operate and subvert people ever again, even though, we all know what the hairdo is like nowadays, but like that's besides the point. That's irrelevant to like normies, right? So
the point though is that the operation in out of this was to have a chilling effect, and B, to keep going, because that really is the way to do it. Is that you can have your financial independence or your own parallel institution, but money is still the thing that you're set for. I know that there's talk about crypto or Web3 or whatever being like maybe the future out of this, but I'd imagine that he'll probably get out of it. But that has sort of been the modus operandi for quite a few years now, is to make sure they can never do it again. And I mean, this isn't the first time it's happened. This has happened throughout even before the internet, but this is the way that you do it, is financial crippling.
Yeah, obviously that's the whole point. And I think that with Alex Jones, it's sort of like Rittenhouse. It's, I think, one of those litmus tests for engagement in the political right. I think I haven't seen it, I could be wrong, but if you have anyone counter signaling Alex Jones, I think that you have to seriously examine yourself. Now, I have no sympathy for people that are persecuting him, in my opinion. I don't care. I mean, oh my God, oh, what about the Joe? No, I don't care. You know why I don't care? Because I think that, because I love and truly respect and appreciate all that he's done, whether he's been wrong in the past or he's been too bombastic or not. I think that Alex Jones is the first of a very, very dark road that we're going down as a civilization. I truly believe this. I believe that to take him out is a sign of things to come. And the fact that if they can weaponize legal fare against him, even against the hairdo, listen, I don't exactly like the hairdo, okay? I know some other people know I don't exactly like this other guy that they're mentioning in the chat, but I do think that to go after these people is monstrous, in my opinion. I mean, okay, maybe the hairdo, you could say, he has shared some responsibility, blah, blah, blah. But like, that's a personal thing, when it comes to people on our side, whether you want to say people led people down a certain path. The point being is that the state to go after them, whether it be the hairdo or Alex Jones or Nick or whoever, the point being is that this is for a reason. It is, and you don't have to say it, it's anarcho-tyranny, right? Like, this is the sort of double standard, the legal double standard. But I think that the stakes are so high now that to really go, like, to counter signal any of these people when they're being persecuted by the federal government and they're being persecuted by lawfare, with these weaponized lawsuits, I think that it's terrible, and I think that we're really in a spiritual battle, in my opinion. I think that Alex Jones, the reason they wanted to take him out is because he knows this. He knows that we are in not just an existential fight, but also a spiritual fight for who we are. And I think that to take him out, this can only lead to nothing but evil, in my opinion. And I have no words for it. I think that the whole show trial is so obvious and so transparent to anyone. And it really is what the regime wants to do to us. I mean, put it this way. I mean, you were talking about the woman, the girl who did the surgery and took the HRT and started Norwooding, right? Do we have a before photo of this person?
I don't know.
I could try to find it.
Yeah, I would like to see, because
Right.
she said she was only like 20 something, and she was on it for 5 years. So I mean, she started as like a teenager,
right?
And that's the thing is that the fact that you mentioned that it's spiritual does.
Well, let me link the two.
Yeah, see if you can.
Okay, so this person, started at 17. Okay, so I mean,
23.
Yeah. Helena was a bit younger. Hopefully, didn't get that serious. So, this person, right? We look what happened. Look at the absolute the face of these people. That the K person, right?
Do you have a link, Gio?
Yeah. Well, I have a link. I know people. Yeah. Actually, 8 Eli on Twitter. I'll send it to you. Posted the screen cap of the general of the regime. The Twitch streamer making fun of this girl. Now, here's the thing. We know that this is a monumental evil, right?
Yeah.
We know that what's happening is terrible. But let me just I can't think at the same type and think at the same time.
Well, the other thing too, while you're doing that with Alex is that, well, this also has a huge electoral influence as well. I mean, he's been one of the bigger Trump guys out there. He, millions of people that follow him and rally.
Here you go. I found the tweet. I'll send it in the
private chat thing here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But I mean, it will have a huge chilling effect on the ability to speak out in 24, because I mean, if he's not on Twitter, right? Because I do think he's running again, and I know that people are like, oh, get over electoral politics, but I mean, that stuff is still going to happen, whether you like it or not. And that's going to play a huge role. That, well, if he's not on Twitter and you just more or less financially kneecapped one of his biggest vocal supporters, as millions and millions of people following him, then, well, damn, you've effectively neutered both primary and alternate media sources to do it.
So Frazier only on any SNES. SNES? What is the SNE? Is that a game?
The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, a very old game console.
When did that come? Was that before or after the Sega Genesis?
SNES came out in
that's an old one, right? Yeah, okay. Maybe that was before. Alex Jones, the embodiment of the American spirit. So, okay, this is why I bring up the girl, the Norwood girl. Did you get the private chat?
Yeah.
Throw that up.
Share the tweet.
Okay. This is from my good friend AD. Actually, we've been following each other for years. I think since 2017, back in the day. So, sending HRT to underage people so you can mock them when they ruin their lives. And we all know the Twitch streamer referring to, of course, like Poodler, right? So, here's the thing. This girl, right? Now, we don't know what, I could kind of like maybe guess what she maybe have looked like before the transition. So, you have this monumental evil right here, right? You have the face of it. So what if this, listen, I've known the type, okay? You take like the tomboy femcel, okay? Tomboy femcel. Now imagine if this girl found a proper man to love her and to sort of dissuade her from going down this road, from being groomed on Discord, from thinking these terrible ideas, right? Now, this is the sort of spiritual, metaphysical sickness that we're seeing right now. Now, someone like Alex Jones, someone said that, any SNES said that Alex Jones embodies so many aspects of the American spirit and American mythos, and is sort of like the carnival barker, minstrel preacher of what used to be at the heart of the New World, right? There's so many attributes to Alex Jones. Now you have this ugliness and this evil and this distortion, and someone like Alex Jones preaches against it. But you notice that we're fighting the same war on different fronts here by pointing out that this is what you will get if you sort of regret the sins you've made in terms of the sort of social circles of our enemies. This is what you will get. You will get the most evil metaphysical cancer that will visit you by being mocked for regretting a terrible decision that in large part was not your fault. There's this one edit by Nobody TM where I think it was called Children in Tavistock, where it's these children playing in a field. It's like one of these 70s footages, and there's like all these color distortions and everything. And there's a message that repeats over and over again. It is not their fault. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's not this person's fault. It's not these Zoomers' fault in a lot of ways, right? Because they are a product of a fallen world. And someone like Alex Jones, every single day, right or wrong, whatever he gets wrong, whatever he takes is bombastic and, out of place, whatever. Ignore that for a moment. Every single day, Alex Jones goes up there and he says, we live in a broken world. We live in a spiritually debased world. But there is the God above us that can guide us. There is something higher than ourselves that we can help build and create with guidance from above. And I think that when you look at this and you look at what they're doing to Alex Jones, that is what I want people to realize and focus on. And that is why what we're doing in the world is in my opinion, good. Same with ROG Nationalist, right? The discourse was about, well, ROG doesn't really talk about certain issues that are important. He kind of does, actually, and even my podcast he did. But I think that that's not the place. And, Patrick Casey, he hit the nail on the head in his article in American Sun, is that, people, again, everything under heaven and earth has a place. Every prophet, or to do a Christian metaphor, every prophet in their house, right? Every angel in their house, right? Like the sort of celestial order of things. So that is what we have to realize. This is the sort of lesson, is that there is every prophet in their house, every angel in their house, everything above heaven and earth has their place. You know what I mean? So I think that if you were someone who starts counter signaling everybody or saying like, oh, you can't talk about this, that's different. But ROG has never done this. So again, my point being is this is why I defend Alex Jones, because I think that he truly realizes what's at stake. And I think that to sort of confront at the face of it what we're truly dealing with here, that is, in my opinion, a spiritual mission. And this is why they want to go after him so hard. And let's face it, and not to say it for YouTube purposes, but it's kind of weird how you can't question this one thing that they went after him for. Really kind of interesting. Kind of, not saying anything, but I'm just saying it's very interesting. Yeah, not even to mention the place, but not even to mention the guy that did it, but like, you know what I mean? Like, me and Catherine went for 3 hours talking about the guy.
We saw this in other places more recently this year that, these people were... the one that happened in Texas earlier this year allegedly was in communication with somebody on a Discord server that had somehow magically tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment that no one gets by making $7.25 an hour on Wendy's part-time. Huh. But that's a big issue there that ironically you can't discuss that in the same way we'll never know what happened in that one October day in Las Vegas a few years back.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And regardless, funny, out of all the things that you can or can't say, that's definitely one of them. And the other issue that I think that this also comes to mind is that, I think a lot of people realize what they're up against and it can be daunting, and that a lot of people will view the situation before them and be like, well, we are up against these insurmountable enemies or foes, or really I think that there's only one thing that really does cause that, and that is the work of the evil one. That is your enemy at the end of the day.
And 100%.
And here's the thing about like the picture we just had earlier. you know,
What if
there's a
this person was received love from a good man? What
well,
if that
yeah. Well,
happened,
not just
right?
that, or a family that actually had cared, because I
Yeah,
want you to consider the
yeah.
fact that, single parent households have grown extensively. We've lost the ability to have the role that comes in selling an identity or an alternate lifestyle that, allows you to escape the pressures of this really difficult world that we live in. And it's unforgivable for the fact that that's a product of this broken system that we live in, whether it's single parent households, the fact that the internet has become the cheap alternative to raising and socializing people. I think of that god awful meme a while back about this like strange, wild, dyed haired, like 10-year-old boy that says, oh, I was raised like Tumblr taught me to teach this, Twitter taught me this,
Yeah.
DeviantArt taught me that. Like that one.
Oh my god, I love that one. I love the Chan edit of that where it's like
Well, the Chan edit's different, but
yeah.
to get to the point about that is that it illustrates that there's been a relinquishment of parenthood, and that the abolition of man, men without chests, or removing the organ and expecting function,
Mm,
um, tells me that we have reached the abolition of man, and that what's going to come next is the atomization of man, and we're well on to that,
100%.
because what happens to an atomized person? They seek out the alternative, and they will do whatever they can to try to ascend from that. And that means either doing this sort of stuff that we see here. But what makes it even worse is the fact that we now are in a place that makes these things really, really appealing.
Mhm.
Really appealing to those that feel lonely or done for. And I don't remember which saint said this, but it has stuck with me since I read it a long time ago. And it was that um, the devil himself cannot make hell beautiful or attractive, but he can make
Yes.
the pathway to it the most beautiful
Beautiful
thing
and
on earth.
attractive. Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me really sticks out, because that's what this is. We know this is not organic. In the same way that Politico talking about, oh, LGBTQ voters are going to be this new big voting bloc. No, that's not organic. They're traditionally less than 2% of the population in the United States, if not the entire, world writ large. And now they're growing in the same way that like a quarter of Gen Z identifies this way. And it's just like, damn, that clearly isn't organic. Almost as if this is sponsored by people like the Tavistock Institute,
Hmm.
or numerous individuals that, like the person that we had that was making that god awful, making fun of this person, and his current spats and the receding hairlines and all that. And it just illustrates that, yeah, like this is what we're dealing with. And there are reasons why I think that there's a big focus now on health and religion, regardless of what you think is coming in or happening. Because at the end of the day, you are dealing with something that wants to take the inverse of the good, sacramentality, and instead you're going to be turning yourself into what was once, I'd imagine, someone's very beautiful daughter, and is now
Yeah.
maybe a 5'3" Norwooding individual with a deeper
A
voice and is
subpar
permanently
man, in
scarred
other
forever.
words.
And it's
Yeah.
just like, and what was worse is that there was some tweet out there about a detransition support group that had a lot of teenage girls asking when their breasts will grow back after a double
Oh my
mastectomy. You
god.
cannot give informed consent to this. And once you argue that teenagers can have informed consent to this, you're a hop, skip, and a jump away to what they wanted to do in the 1970s, or more or less abolish the age of consent
Yeah.
and go from there. Um,
Well,
and
this
I
has
and
already
I say,
happened.
and it's happening now, right? Like you're right, between the drag queen story hour and things like
Oh no,
that.
I was gonna say like with teenage girls and that certain medical procedure that
Oh
that was
God.
a big debate. Remember, like not telling their parents
Yeah,
the
not well
Planned
that
Parenthood. Yeah,
yeah, Planned Parenthood not telling your parents about the the issue of abortion. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
big
yeah.
one.
That's the model, by the way. That's like they're
Or
following the
but all
model to the
but what's
T.
worse, and I shared this thread the other day, and this is what really like I there's not been a lot of things that I've read lately because I feel desensitized on the internet, but this one
Oh yeah.
actually physically made me ill, about this lawsuit against Amazon about selling highly concentrated amounts of a certain chemical that is used
Sunset.
to help you end your take yourself out this mortal coil. And that they were hiding 1-star reviews from parents, and
Mm-hmm.
that they was selling alongside books on how to peacefully slip off this mortal coil by your own hand. And I was physically made sick. And I know that we say all this and that they delight in their wickedness and that they enjoy all this, but um, really all I can say at this point is that you see all these things and that you think about it all this time, but keep your mind in hell and despair not, because there's going to be a lot more worse things that are going to come. And this is the battle, and this is sort of the ground set match that you're dealing with.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I think like, and the fact that like Amazon gave the excuse of like, oh well, we believe in this, so it's like we have to do this, and it's like doesn't matter the consequences. It's like that's such a like that is such a dangerous moral hazard. It's like what my country's doing with people who are depressed. By the way, this is real. You know,
Yeah,
I
I
saw
was
a
just
news
reading
article,
that.
23-year-old the other day that was depressed, that was homeless. They gave
Yeah,
assisted, you know what to. So
I mean that was the big thing about. I was reading that the other day about the Canadian healthcare system, the rise of this industry. And I think that
it's an
this is actually,
industry now.
yeah, it's an industry, which makes it even worse that people are profiting off just telling people to go into it. And what makes it worse is that I was reading, I think it was, believe it, I think it was like Slate Star Codex that had talked about this a while back. That all of the studies that pushed for any sort of euthanasia are deeply flawed, are not clinically or even academically, repeatable. We have a duplication crisis already in academia, and apparently, it's already the sixth leading cause of death in Canada. And I mean, this is what you're dealing with, and so this is why I really fully endorse the vitalism and the health and the um, energy that comes out of, say, Raw Egg Nationalist or BAP and others, even though we may not agree on, say, maybe on teleological grounds, right? But by God, those guys are offering you an alternative to the status quo, because the status quo just would like you to end. And we would very much like to keep you around.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it's interesting because I said this recently. I think it'll be up either tonight or tomorrow, hopefully. My review of the Wired magazine article, "Why the Future Doesn't Need Us" by this like Silicon Valley engineer guy, who became a CEO of a tech company. I said like it's very funny how, especially in Canada, we have like this huge thing too with like libtards, where they desperately want you to end it for some reason. They think that assistant and heroing is the height of humanism, but at the same time, their ethics preaches that life is viewed from the stomach and we need to support the world, like the wholesome Chungus millions must live type of thing, where BAP talks about this, that really depopulation isn't the goal, because where's the depopulating, right? Like they're giving subsidies to the third world, whatever. So this is a very schizophrenic picture of the regime and what they believe in. And Canada is the leading if you really want to see a petri dish of any sort of like toxic brew that the global regime is coming up with, look at Canada. There you go, right off the bat. So it's very schizophrenic in the sense. Why would they want us to also live this like yeast-like existence without any purpose, where all of us are like poor, and we're fed Z slop, but at the same time, assistant and heroing is viewed as like this moral good. It's the height of all ethics and all liberal humanism. It's like, I remember the 2000s when this thing was like the Scandinavian model thing, right? Where it's like, paying like thousands of dollars to Dignitas to end it all, right? Like this is like a very, very schizophrenic worldview. And Canadians, I hate to say it, we have this like thing, like a lot of Leafs are like, oh, it's, well, now they're like, oh, I thought it was good, but I guess if they're getting rid of people that don't deserve it, oh my God. It's like, well, what did you sign up for? What did you sign up? What did you vote for when Trudeau said that this was going to be a main
But
platform?
these people would protest.
Yeah.
These people would protest the execution of murderers and criminals.
Well, I mean, here in Canada, look up the Robert Latimer case, where he took his daughter, who was a paraplegic and had other health issues, and you know, like Terry Schiavo, that was our
Yeah.
Terry Schiavo, but it was, you know, he's free now, by the way. He's free. He works for some liberal organization in Toronto, I think, or somewhere,
Dear
Vancouver.
God.
Yeah, it's Robert Latimer. Look him up. He did away with his daughter, who was a burden, and you know, it's like all the Canadian heroes are just abject failures. You know what I mean? Like, here's the thing. I was talking about this the other day. It was some case. I had this whole rant about Romeo Dallaire, but I don't know if we could bring up Rwanda. That's kind of another thing. But
I mean, our friend Pete Quinones had an article about that. That really, it's just that's what it's orienting towards, is that kind of Radio Rwanda style kind of
Bap talked
communication.
about that as well. You know, here's the thing in Canada, because I'm a Canadian millennial, so we grew up with this, right? Like about Romeo Dallaire, and he's this big hero, and he tried to prevent it. He tried to stop it. Here's the thing. You don't want to know the real truth. Romeo Dallaire, and I don't care if I cop a Human Rights Commission case for this. Romeo Dallaire did shit. You know what Romeo Dallaire did? He was sitting in the fucking hotel on his talk with who was the head of the UN at the time, Boutros Boutros. He's like on his phone to Boutros Boutros. Oh, you're really going to help us right now? Yeah, you didn't do nothing, okay? You know what you did? You sat there and you waited for the militia to come into Kigali. That's what Romeo Dallaire did. But now he goes around and says, oh, you're going to vote for the Liberals, or else, because the Liberals are going to prevent another Rwanda. You know what? Fuck you, Romeo Dallaire. You did nothing. Like, I hate to say it, but Trump was 100% right. He said this about John McCain, who is in hell right now. He said, you know what? We give you points for not being captured. We give you points for winning. You know what I mean? We don't give you points for being a loser. And Romeo Dallaire, you're a loser, okay? You let those people die. Woo! 100% America, but there's a difference, because Canada, we love a loser. But Americans love a winner and they abhor a loser. Canada loves a loser and they hate winners. That's why they hate America. Listen, it's serious. So Romeo Dallaire is a total failure, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm spitting right now. Listen, I'm busting a flow, but it's like, because we grew up in Canada, we had to worship Romeo Dallaire. And Romeo Dallaire says, oh, we got to vote for liberals because Stephen Harper's he ain't going to prevent another Rwanda. It's like, no, Romeo Dallaire, you are a hack. You are a fraud. Okay? You did nothing. You could have called, who was the prime minister at the time? Chrétien? He could have called, was it still Trudeau, I think? Oh, God, I think it was Chrétien. He could have called Parliament Hill. And he said, listen, I don't care if you have to do it. You could go and you could get the Americans involved. Send people over. Send the Canadian military, okay? He could have cordoned off stadiums to let people in who are Tutsis. He could have saved thousands of people, but you know what he did? He sat there and he did nothing. And he was a good little boy that listened to the UN when they told him that they weren't going to do anything. That is Romeo Dallaire. I'm so Prude. I just had to get that off my chest. I don't know why we're talking about this. Oh, man.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with what you just ranted about. Needed to be said.
Oh, man. But you know what I mean? Like that same with McCain, right? We give you points for not being... I remember when Trump said that. We give you points for not being captured.
Well, I mean, if you can... And here's the other thing, too, is that whatever happened about him and his time in Vietnam, we'll never know. That man spent the rest of his career making sure that it was harder to get POW information. He made it harder to make sure that the families of people that were still potentially and were discovered to still be prisoners of war in Vietnam or were not found and taken home, that information became harder and harder to find from families.
Oh, yeah.
And he accused them of being unpatriotic and insulting to his own war status when they were asking basic questions about their families and where the hell they've been for the last 20 years. And so it gets harder and harder. And that's all that McCain had spent a majority of his time doing while advocating for war. And I am so glad that Barack Obama won in 2008 because this bomb Iran shit was staved off a little while longer. And here we are. I hate that man with a passion.
I know.
There's plenty of videos of him in the Maidan come right before 2016.
Oh, with jihadis, there's plenty of videos of him.
And plenty of him inside in Afghanistan and others. There is a trail of blood and plenty of dead innocents any place that John McCain had ever stepped foot on this earth. And anyone that wishes to defend him, you will be in the same location that he is right now, and that's hell. I have no respect for John McCain or his rent boy that is Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, or his spiritual protege that exists now as Dan Crenshaw. Those guys need to go. But I will leave it
Oh
there.
God, Dan Crenshaw. Oh, Crenshaw.
Well, the best person who's ever made fun of Dan Crenshaw is actually Nick Fuentes, and
yeah,
I will forever love that clip where he has the coin over his eye. There be treasure.
Yeah, that's brutal. But he deserves it, man. Crenshaw. Remember when people thought he was based for like 2 minutes and it was over?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Dan Crenshaw.
Well, and that's the thing about the John McCain, Dan Crenshaw types is even if you're young and energetic and things like that, it don't matter because you'll show your true colors in 5 seconds the moment you get criticism.
Yeah, that's I think Dan Crenshaw. That was his problem is that he like could not take criticism from the frogs and like he just snapped and then he like retreated into the Ben Shapiro, like kind of like Peterson. He's like retreating into the Ben Shapiro containment zone. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like,
I get really upset though, because like Jordan Peterson, when he started out was sort of like this beacon for a bunch of disaffected white guys. I mean, yes, there's the whole, well, I'm trying to de-radicalize people type bit. And yeah, that's a big issue. But the fact that he sort of addressed that spiritual malaise that was coming about in like the 2015 era of politics is something that I really think matters. And then he goes through the most like Dostoevsky style of suffering that I could ever possibly imagine.
Oh
like,
God!
If there was something that would make a man realize some humility and maybe realize he's got a creator, no, you sold your soul to Ben Shapiro in the Daily Wire.
Didn't he march against a synagogue or not a synagogue, a mosque? Is that true? Was that footage real?
I'm not sure.
But let me look this up if it's real, because apparently he was in Israel.
It's depressing though to see his current state of affairs, to say the least, because you know, like you said, there's the Barry Weiss Substack unheard City Journal zone, and then there is the Ben Shapiro Daily Wire zone. Although one of the few places that I guess, I mean, there's a few things that are nice, like out of that. I mean, Matt Walsh is definitely not what you would call our guy, but he did some very good criticism the other day that Turnip had shared, where he sort of went off on this like Lutheran theologian seminarian guy, because he's just like, well, I liked the documentary One Is a Woman, but I really didn't like the fact that Matt Walsh made it. And it's just like, you know, oh well,
yeah, it may,
well, who would have made
Twitter,
it then? Who would have made it then?
Yeah, it may have been disinfo. He was in Israel and he marched blocking a mosque or something. I don't know. I saw something on Twitter. I don't think it's real, but I mean, yeah, like Matt Walsh is a good, like he got into controversy like recently for just like, I don't know. Was it the way he said it though about like 16-year-olds having kids or something? Like, what was that?
They tried to go after him for simply pointing out the fact that something around the lines of that a 19-year-old woman is at her most fertile.
But that's just a biological. Like, I think his point was that he said like back in the day, a 16-year-old getting married to like a boy who is also 16 or 17 or whatever, and they had kids. It wasn't like that was just the norm. Like that, I think that's what his point was. But then they spun it to be like he's creepy. He's a, you know, they're doing this right now. By the way, same with the whole discourse around detransitioners. They're doing the whole, especially Arnie Bros. They're doing the whole the right wing of the real P words, real cheese pizzaists, where they're
the real. You know, groom style.
Yeah. Apparently, there's a whole epidemic in America of like evangelicals marrying off their fertile teenage daughters, and that's like, you know, that's apparently it's a whole epidemic now. You know, the old religious right marrying, you know, teenage brides, blah blah blah. Like that's they're like the real G worders.
This has been the thing though, that anytime that they want to divert attention away, it's always the Oh, we have to
religious
talk
right.
about. Well, we always have to talk about the religious right and the need to
Yeah.
ban child marriage in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that is a big issue that comes to mind there, right? I mean, the other issue, of course, is just public school. If there is
Hmm.
one big thing that we can say out of out of this sort of atmospheres is that people like Matt Walsh and libs of TikTok and others has done a very, very good job in regards to calling
Oh
out
yeah.
the teacher
Yeah.
issue.
No, because
Um,
here's the thing. Can we say the G word on YouTube?
I have no idea in regards to. I
Ooming.
mean,
Let's call it Yeah, the
I think we can say it. Just say groomer. It's fine.
grooming. Okay, yeah. So here's the thing. They don't. This is why the hypocrisy thing. And like I know, libs of TikTok. What's her name? I can't pronounce her name, but she's one of the good
Uh,
ones, right?
what's the word I'm looking for? I can't. Yeah, I couldn't pronounce it either. But yes, unfortunately,
Radhika. I forget her name, like her real name. It's like
she was doxxed by Taylor Lorenz. So I
yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
but yes, no, the woman that runs libs of TikTok
Yeah, yeah.
is a
Here's the thing. Yeah.
yeah.
She's kind of decently attractive, you know. Anyways, the point being is that
Had to get that in there, Gio.
I had to get in that. Yeah, yeah. The point
All
being,
these
well, she's
married
way more
women.
than Taylor Lorenz. I know all these married women. No, I think that she does good work, but I think that you have to realize that the whole like hypocrisy point. I mean, we've gone over this a million times. Every single day we say that hypocrisy doesn't matter because here's the thing: the real problem is that they don't view that as grooming. By the way, they don't view that as such. They view what they're doing as perfectly moral, and it's actually hyper moral to them. That is the Alex Kashuta said this. This is the ultimate fulfillment of their project is that every demographic in the world must be liberated, including children. And so to them, that's not, the G word, ooming, right? Like they don't care. So, the libs of TikTok woman pointing this out, it's good for people who already know and who can see the horror of it. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they ignore that or they don't frame it that way. I've seen leftist activists actually apologize for legitimate cheese pizza cases in their ranks. And they said that, oh, that's not bad. And you don't get it. It's like, I've seen this. So these people, they're given over to a reprobate mind. And you can't really.
This is the long.
And no,
con.
I wasn't simping for Lorenz. I said that the libs of TikTok woman looks way better. Like,
yeah.
Even if Taylor Lorenz was not like an aging 50-year-old rich kid and was like a hideous hag, even if Taylor Lorenz was physically beautiful, spiritually she will always be ugly. So she will always be hideous.
Spiritual ugliness will spiritual ugliness will always make any person ugly.
Exactly.
And the other issue though too is that what this is this is the interesting bit. This is the long con that fell apart. Remember how there was the big uproar and the big trying to cancel, Harry Hay for the whole walking with pride, saying that a certain organization walks with him.
Oh yeah.
And so
yeah,
the biggest thing,
yeah.
And so the biggest thing that they managed to convince through the media apparatus and everything else was that they weren't after children. And now that meme, that little memeplex is cracking now at the seams, and it's very obvious that they are. And this is why it's the thing is that they've built up, and I think that Bruh Moment's got a point about having it fall flat once they've built up the necessary propaganda to socially engineer the public further. And they're already doing that. Is that even though they don't. If they lost their precious court case on the issue of what they say terminating a fetus, they're okay with saying that babies know that they're in the wrong body or have the wrong sex inside the womb, even though they typically don't see that as that even being a person until they're born or even later, because some issues about soul and whatnot. So, and not to mention you have things like the Tavistock Clinic, the Tavistock Institute, Mermaids UK, all these things that have illustrated.
Oh, the head of Mermaids was outed recently.
That too. And so this is what happens with liberation theology taken to its extreme. So this is a big consequence, is that once this becomes, and it is on this way to seriously push the social engineering to a level where, oh, you know, if you can't reproduce naturally, don't worry, we'll just groom the next child over. And if they can't, you know, terminate your baby, they'll happily sterilize it.
Yeah. And again, it's another case where things are much older than people think in terms of online right-wing discourse. There were a number, I had this thread once that I had to delete because one of these people said that this was the most transphobic thread ever. It was about how this type of ideology leads to the cheese pizzaism, right?
Yeah.
This stuff is much older. There was this documentary that was made in, I believe it was public access too. It was like from NBC or whatever. It was called The Men Who Love Boys. This was made in 90, I want to say 93. I was about, oh God, I was only 1 year old in 93. About the sort of struggle of that one group you mentioned, that one organization, the, you know, man, boy, you know what, right? How they were going into these parades in San Francisco, and a lot of people were uncomfortable and they're like, "You're gonna get out of here." But then other people were like, "I don't care." And so it followed people who were cheese pizzaists and who tried to make this like ethical argument about it. And so this stuff is way older in terms of discourse.
It's rooted into the very basic aspects of a lot of the sort of feminist critical theory stuff. I mean, you know, you can look at some of the writings of Kimberly Crenshaw. You can look at some of all of them, and they're going to talk about this and defend it. And you know, slippery slope, as Steve states, is undefeated, and that's how it is, right? And I mean, that's the other thing too, is that they've made it so mechanical, they've made it so soulless that terrible, disgusting webcomic person assigned whatever.
Oh, assigned male or assigned gender.
You know, using pictures of actual children for whatever art that they do.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That was last year.
But they're still around. Yeah. They're still around. I mean, this was the point that they're starting to use the word assigned now, right? Because age means nothing, and they want to.
But that's the hyper-clinicized. That's the medicalized terminology that they want to reduce the human subject down to.
Because if you can pathologize evil, what we would call evil, then great. And what you already have capture of the medical institution. You had that University of Michigan Medical School talking about not doing the Hippocratic Oath, but this oath to defend and respect and know all forms of indigenous healing that isn't Western. So yeah, we're in a tough spot. But wow, we've we started out with gatekeeping, and now we're in real doomer hours here, folks. Hello.
No, but I think like it's the same with the assisted sunsetting. It's in Canada. Again, we Scandinavia was the pioneer, but in Canada, we become the sort of like pro North American, like mass society democratization of what was a niche issue in the Scandinavian countries, right? About assisted sunsetting.
Yeah.
There was this this documentary I saw back in the 2000s. It was actually produced by Canada. It was a production. It was one of these like documentary channel things where this guy was a scientist. Of course he was. So he doesn't believe in God. And he had some kind of like Huntington's or whatever. Excuse me. And he paid, I think, Dignitas something like $200,000 to fly to Denmark. Was it Denmark? Yeah. And sunset himself. And I remember like watching this. This was like in the 2000s. I was like a teenager. It was the early 2000s. No. I was a bit older. I was like, I was in high school. And
it was a while ago, though.
It was a while ago, yeah. And I was watching this. I'm like, man, this is crazy. This is like the destruction. Even back then, I thought it was the destruction of values. Because when you put things in this very clinical, medicalized term, but then you also have this sort of like secular humanist artifice over it, where you say that it's about your dignity, it's about your respect as a human being. It's like these medicalized terms are designed to lull you into this sort of baseless moralism that constructs the secular humanist liberal worldview. And I think that you have to be consciously aware of it, the subversion of it. And you have to be aware that the whole thing about respecting your dignity, that it's kind of like the most undignified thing. It's like it's like the way a scientist would put down a lab rat after the experiment. That's how I looked at it. It's like very like clinical and very like you sign the forms, and it's not even like as graceful as like the scene in Soylent Green where you were listening to was it Rachmaninoff, the song that he was listening to, and he sees the field and like, you know, in the sunsetting booth, you know, that scene in Soylent Green,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like not even that. It's like very clinical. It's very like end of life care, and like it's disgusting to me. It's terrible. It lacks all sort of it lacks the sacredness of the rituals around people dying that oftentimes involve suffering. And I feel that, you know, like I can't describe it any other way. It's terrible. It really is satanic in a lot of ways, in my opinion, because it's giving you this false sense of dignity, which is a terrible inversion.
And what makes it,
I'm just ranting right now.
And I mean, but it's also in even older text as well. I mean, for some reason, the French are just really notorious at this. I mean, André Gide's book, The Immoralist, which came out like in 1902, which talks about, you know, this sort of weird fantasy attraction to young individuals in Algeria. Just good Lord, it's just them and certain French writers and thinkers in Algeria. Good God. But I mean, this is some pretty old stuff, unfortunately, that has been continuing for some time. But what do you have in here? Oh my, yeah, no, I won't go any further on that issue, but it's certainly there.
It's just something about Telegram. Yeah. But anyways, that's No, I mean the Tunisian thing. I know I'm just defending Foucault. I know it's
God. It's
but no, I mean it was a second and third hand source, and it was a guy that didn't like Foucault, and he did like abominable stuff in California, in San Francisco. San Francisco. But I mean, I tend to doubt that. I mean, a lot of French writers went to Tunisia to do. I mean, even Bowles. I hate to say it. They did a lot of Sussy Baka stuff. But I mean, this particular case, I tend to doubt because it's coming from a biased source. That's all I'm going to say. And even if it's true, I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying that, you know, Michel Foucault, like most, in fact, like all French writers and academics, was deeply flawed. And I think that even though that shouldn't mean that we can't take his work seriously. You know what? I'm just going to stop right now. I'm just going to bury him. I know I'm burying a hole. I know I'm digging a hole. But I'm just listen, I'm saying, yes, he was a very evil man. But I'm just saying that I wasted a lot of time studying him.
So this is just sunk cost fallacy. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. If
it makes you feel any better, I'm like that with Deleuze and Guattari, so don't worry. If there ever comes a day where those guys get roasted, I may inadvertently come to their defense just because I have almost all of their texts. And I know Guattari was gay, but was Deleuze gay? I forget. I'm pretty sure that they were, at least at one point in time.
That's right. They were lovers a little bit, but then they had more of a professional relationship.
But we should probably stop being devil's advocate for these people.
I know.
God. And this is why I've spent most of my time on the internet now, just trying to course correct my college education of reading these Frenchies and getting back to the classics. But yeah, no. So the last thing I guess to touch on because I mean, wow, we've really kept the audience solid in numbers for 2 hours. Fantastic.
I know. Geopolishing the bald head of post-structuralism. Well, Deleuze was Norwooding near the end, though. He was pretty Norwood. I mean, he had a good amount of hair. Like, it was maybe Norwood level 3. But he ended, like, he unfortunately sunsetted it in 97. Was it 97? So. Yeah. He had some kind of rheumatic condition that even prevented him from writing. And he was kind of like wasting away near the end of his life. He wasn't very good. He wasn't in a good place. And I believe he threw himself out of his window.
I think so. I have to
Yeah,
look it
that's a
up. I'm
typical
not
French defenestration.
defenestration.
In
Well,
Italian, it's defenestra. So that's
they stopped doing
that's where it comes from.
they stopped doing the revolutionary way of ending things in 1977. So it makes sense to defenestrate yourself. But
Yeah.
maybe to get to our last point before we get to the super
Many
chats.
writers have thrown themselves out of many artists and writers have thrown themselves out of windows. Some of them lived like Francis Bacon lived. Well, that was more of a kink with him and his lover, the painter Francis Bacon. Yeah, his lover beat the absolute tar out of him and threw him out of a third-story window. And he said that it was one of the most exhilarating and erotic experiences in his life, even though it smashed his pelvis and broke 3 ribs. And he was in a coma for like a week, I think. He said it was the most erotic experience he ever lived through.
Well,
so, there you go. If you look at his paintings, just say
yeah. Let's go. Let's maybe transition to the last point here before we get to the super chats. And I think that we mentioned it earlier with like Raw Egg Nationalists, but it's just like we've got this Tucker Carlson not as the end point, but as the nexus to a much larger world. This was a conversation Sam Batch and I were having. That it actually isn't, the goal isn't to get on. I mean, the goal is Tucker Carlson to get on there, I think, for people. But it's also it's not the end all be all because these people, start to make bank. And
so, Gio, you call yourself a true cell. What is a true cell for our audience? Well, Tucker, a true cell is an incel who's actually never had sex. What do you mean? I thought incels don't have. No, Tucker, you have to realize incel is a spiritual state of mind. You can be married. I've known married incels, Tucker. Fascinating. But most people don't know. The liberals don't want you to know this, right, Gio? Yeah, exactly, Tucker. The liberals don't want you to know this. That you can be married and be an incel.
It's only a matter of time since Default mentioned your caught you up.
Yeah.
But I think he really is sort of just turned into the
Tucker, did you know that there are people that are doing let me try to think. Did you ever heard about goon caves, Tucker? He starts laughing.
No.
no. Imagine like telling the boomer truther, like the boomer truth regime. All of a sudden, like you inject goon caves into that discourse. Like
I don't think they need that, Gio. There's a lot of things
like your grandson. Hey, how's it going, Pa? Billy, did you know about Goon Cave? Do you have a Goon Cave, Billy? Is there something you got to talk about with me? I heard it on Tucker. There's a fat guy on Tucker who says he's got a Goon Cave. What's a Goon Cave?
Good God.
Look at this comment from Ed. I performed for an audience of 1, Gio and Tucker Carlson. Oh, man. We're going to raid the... I had this tweet once when I was on Follow the Rules. Looks at the producer.
Looks at Stephen Downing. Cut the tape.
Cut it. No, and Tucker's like, no, we're keeping all of this. I had this tweet where it was a picture of the James Woods movie Vampires, where it was like me and the boys that follow the rules are raiding the Goon Caves. And it was like they were entering into the vampire lair. Like I thought it was funny. I love that movie, by the way. That's when listen. I know people don't like 90s John Carpenter, but I love 90s John Carpenter. I think some of his greatest works were made there. Like when I was a kid, my 2 favorite films, a lot of favorite films, was Ghosts of Mars and Vampires. And I both watched them late at night, way past my bedtime on the Turner channel. I think it was called Peachtree. And I just fell in love. And I know people don't like 90s John Carpenter. They think it's like terrible, whatever. But I love mid-90s John Carpenter. Yeah.
People don't?
They say that he wasn't doing very good in the mid-90s. They say like it was like schlock,
he got screwed over by the studio more often than not. I mean, I love In the Mouth of Madness, and that came out in 95. That's one of my
this
favorite.
is like late 90s John Carpenter.
Oh, well, late 90s is a different story, but
You ever watch Ghosts of Mars, Prude?
Yeah. I love just about all of John Carpenter's filmography.
Did you know Steve Vai and Anthrax did the soundtrack?
Oh, I did not.
Yeah. Oh, Escape from LA was 88. Well, no, it was Good evening. Welcome to Tucker Carlson Today. Incels have been the minds of leftists for years now. It's a name they call unwilling virgins. True cells, however, is something more. Gio Penichetti informs.
Thanks for coming on.
So, Gio, what is a true cell? It's like
it's only a matter of time.
Scott Greer was on Tucker Carlson. What?
20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. His fellas
still don't. I mean, we've read the Delicious Taco story. We know how state-mandated GFs would end. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, Watario vids, you're right. Ghosts of Mars is a schlocky film, but Ghosts of Mars, it had like meaning to it. I really like. They could have done more with it, but like I do like it, and I do like that era of Ice Cube. So he was doing pretty well back then. Before they ruined him by putting him in like kids movies.
Different vanish time.
Escape from LA was 96. Yeah, okay, yeah. Is Gio on coke today? No, I was working out before, so that's why it explains it. Scott was on around 2016. Oh, I didn't know that about Scott. Yeah, that was when he before he was doxxed as like the evil right-wing Scott Greer. Like it was yeah,
back
I think
when
he
was still over
in the DC system.
In the writing circuit too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's right. He wrote for the Daily Wire. Not the Daily Wire. He wrote for a Daily Caller, did he not?
Yeah, he did. Daily Caller.
Yeah.
But shall we get
Yes,
to the
I will wear the fez on Tucker. I will wear the fez on Tucker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Man.
Let's get to
we want to talk about Molebug on Chunk Yu-Gi-Oh! Molebug will get a job at MSNBC soon, says JNS.
I could buy that. You know, it's his audience. His audience isn't
his audience. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like Harbinger consumers, how they bring about like the end or a change of a product moving in a different direction.
Yeah.
You know, like he's trying. I think he is trying to shed his right wing and non-audience for the more public facing. I think that's why he went on Senk and everything else like that. I think he is moving in a different audience direction.
Many such cases, where
I mean, he's not. But I mean, like. Flyover country right wing anon me is not the audience that he's ever written for, despite the fact that a bunch of like middle of flyover country don't have any real clear access to the levers of power read him type deal. Many such cases, but let's get to
it's like selling your soul to go to New York City irony bro podcasters. I'm not subtweeting anyone in particular, by the way. But
aren't you mutuals with like both of them?
No. I'm not talking about Red Scare. I'm talking about this other guy, this other fat guy.
Oh boy,
sold his soul to go on Chapo Trapos. Anyways,
no, not worth it. Not worth it. But
not worth it. No, one day Anna Kachan will be on Content Minded. She recently followed me back. I couldn't believe that. I was like, I literally almost fell off my chair.
Well,
so
like I said, it's a good thing that you defend the rotund
women. Yeah.
It all works out.
You know what's funny though about that is that people were accusing Anna of being like typical like skinny girl. Like they always keep the fat women around to like make themselves feel better, but then they'll juice them up to be to be like oh, you're so pretty. It's like, I don't know if Anna's doing that, but I think she had a good point though. I mean, anyways, never mind. Moving on. Super chats time. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you all so much, gentlemen, for tuning in.
Pretty women will gas uglier women up.
Oh, of
for
course.
Obvious reasons.
That's why there is always the fall guy, ugly one at the bar. Many such cases.
It's up for Gio to jump on that grenade. So
for you, it wouldn't be a grenade. It would be an act of love.
Exactly. I believe in a higher form. This is what I mean though about the trans guy. Like it's if Gio came along to love this woman, maybe she wouldn't have done this, becoming a Norwood subpar man. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like I believe in that. I believe that even ugly, like not ugly women, but like, even ugly women. I believe that like there, every prophet in their house. I think that if a man and back our ancestors knew this, you know what I mean? Like there was no problem with that if you were like a subpar guy, that maybe you're not going to end up with a 10 out of 10, but you'll end up with somebody. But somewhere along the way, for a variety of reasons, that system was destroyed. Now we have this like weirdo inversion of the what they call the Pareto patriarchy, where, I mean, you don't have to go into this, where a number of men benefit, but the vast majority of men don't, vast majority of women don't. And it's, you know what I mean?
Well,
I think,
that's where you get to the status quo now, where people are having less sex than ever and are more unhappy than ever.
I heard that women are even having less sex.
Yeah, the femcell has surpassed the men in this regard for the first time in years, or actually first time ever. So it's some really shitty situation to be in.
It's like what Catherine said, though. The femcell, they can have sex, but it's not very good. It's not a good idea for them to have sex, because usually, I thought the best movie that confessed to that was that movie Pig Hag. We all like, that was the best having
example.
Sex ruined her. You know what I mean? Like, if
my gaze, you ruined me.
My gaze, you ruined it. Yeah, exactly.
That was just a straight up confession by two gay men who wrote that movie.
Yeah, that they ruined themselves.
But to put things in a better light, Felix Fairmount for $2 says, "Friends say Christ is Lord, gates are kept, and vet." That's been the ultimate witch test on Twitter for progressive Christians. It's like, oh yes, well, you say Christ is Lord, and then it just
St. Peter's gates are there for a reason. So
yes,
I would say that
narrow is the gate, as Christ says. So keep that in mind.
Was that in Matthew, or where was that?
That is in Matthew, but it's also mentioned. The narrow door is mentioned in Luke.
Yeah, even in the Old Testament, there was also the sort of preamble of the narrow door. I think there's a mention of it
in Isaiah, and I think in one of the Psalms.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. There you go.
Cringe Walker for $2 US. Geo, the shark womb, has a word for term crab barrel, but yeah, we talked about this.
We talked about the difference. Yeah. Thank you, Cringe Walker.
We're always appreciative of your support. Jay Ford for $2 says, I'm a shark goo feaster, not a longhouse yeaster. That's good. That's so good.
I love that. I love that.
Ford, tweet that or something. That needs to get put out. That's really good. That's great.
That's amazing. I'll tweet it right now.
That's a good one. I don't know if Ford's on Twitter or not, but like that's a solid banger tweet, as kids like to say.
Oh, look, Buff mentioning Dasha's body count. Yeah, I think she said it was like 150 or something.
Oh,
she includes all the bow yobs, and yeah, it's 150.
Oh my.
So
Son of Haster for $5 US had a nightmare that my TLM parish had an interfaith dialogue mass with a female priest type parish. It's what I get for going on a date with a prot.
Whoa.
Well, if that's what your reaction is to a date with someone outside of your faith, well, good luck finding someone in then. I think that when it comes to interfaith dating, I mean, it's always going to be an issue, but
yeah.
There are some rather religious individuals that will say that like a mixed marriage is even worse than mixed race marriages. But you do want to have your ideological and most importantly your teleological priors on the same ground, because if not, that's going to cause some issues, say when you have children. So
I think like maybe, I don't know, is there probably less issues with the Catholic and Orthodox? That could probably work, but Catholic but the thing is that Catholic and Protestants have always been intermarrying for like time immemorial, especially like in Ireland. So I don't know, but it's still, I understand. Like that's probably.
Well, I mean, it happens here in the U.S. as well. I mean, that's been the longest.
Oh yeah.
The anti-papal discourse with American WASPs come time of the massive waves of immigration.
VF, Ellis Islander GF. That's always happened.
Yeah, I mean that's been the biggest. And that there's a variation of that still lives on today in American politics. And we're
but it's with another faith now. Though it's with another faith.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of it too going on. But yeah, I mean, best of luck. And as always, it's like the Distributed has this guy named Ben White that like every time he streams, he's got someone updating him on his love life and some of the religious, tribulations that come with that. So, well, Son of Haster, I wish you the best of luck regardless.
You know what's funny is that we were talking about frog face.
Yeah.
Apparently
frog exploitation.
Yeah, frog exploitation. Apparently Schuenhead's dating that fake frog. I call him a fake frog. Yeah. He is a fake frog.
He's got the Pepe PFP thing.
Eudaimonia,
Yeah, the Diet Coke in his hands, and he's giving me Mitt Romney takes.
He's got he even had to throw out like a Tradlarp tweet about Jackson Pollock. I wanted to like roast him on it. Like That's the thing, like, you throw out. Like, no, it's like, here's the thing. Like, he said something about, this is fake art, this is fake, this is like, here's the thing. Even someone that like despises like the modernists, like someone like Trad Westernart, Brandon Hurd, like even they admit, like if you read his book, right, Trad Westernart, even they admit that it's not like fake in the sense of like it doesn't have a genealogy in terms of how Jackson Pollock arrived to that conclusion of doing the drip paintings and the technique that he was using. It's just that it's, you know, to him, it's like, you know, not art or it's evil or whatever. So even like a trad, like a totally trad person, like Brendan Hurd would admit that there is a sort of history and a genealogy there to why Jackson Pollock, did what he did. But to just say like, oh, this is fake, like means that there was like a like, it wasn't that like the glowies were like the sophisticated 5D chess, like, oh yeah, they're rubbing their hands, they're saying, oh, let's get people to like Jackson Pollock. It's like, that's not how things work in the real world. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, yes, you could say that Jackson Pollock was given glowy money afterwards, but the sort of development of Jackson Pollock's artwork isn't as cut and dry as like, oh, this is fake, and you did this just to pull the wool over people's eyes. It's like, no, there's a very long history of his influences and what he was responding to in the art world at the time. And even someone that hates Jackson Pollock, like Brendan Hurd, would admit this. You know what I mean? Like, so this guy, Eudaimonia, whatever, like he's just throwing out this trad larp. Just it's so innocent. It's so like non-controversial to hate Jackson Pollock. But when you start doing, just to like deflect from your other cringe takes, they're essentially Mitt Romney tier about Russia or whatever. It's just like, I hate people like that. They literally are fake frogs. You know what I mean? Like, I just,
well, frog face is real. And I'm glad that Catherine D had given us that wonderful term. Cringe Walker for $5 US says, so you want a Witch Inquisition anti-feminist alliance? A curious proposal, Gio. Let's see how that plays out. I mean,
bold strategy. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, let's see how it plays out. Well, my take on this, though, is just like I said in the article, which I will put in the description afterwards for people to read if they're interested. That one's doing numbers on Substack. But, you know, all of us, men and women alike, are, especially in today's, are raised in the ashes and fallout of the sexual revolution, feminist and women's lib, for better or for worse. And it's mainly been for worse, as all of the information indicates, the paradox of declining female happiness and all that jazz. We're going to be dealing with a lot of anti-feminists that are women that are still going to be deconstructing it from a feminist or, you know, first or second wave feminist lens. I mean, that's just until you kill this idea in the head, right? Or whatever form it exists in now, that's how it's going to be. And like we said, there's a nice comfort zone of the Barry Weisses and the Mary Harringtons that have done a really good job at getting the consequences of this about women, you know, women most affected type deal, out to the masses, I think, better than any sort of bohemian style trad wife edit would.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of women are not satisfied. We need to increase a certain rate of something.
And just like our friend Mog the Urbanite, Enoch Powell on Twitter says, we should, you know, increase that rate, but make sure you have a ring on it.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But Med Gold, I think, has got people find him to be nuts, but I think he's onto something there.
He is, but there's valid criticism, though. I know that the Amarnites had that good. Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of stuff yet that's happened.
Look at Reagan Lodge telling on himself in the thing there. I saw a beautiful cat like Ethiopian queen at church wanted to put on a pitted helmet, impress her chief.
We'll put that on the screen in a minute.
Yeah.
Restoring order.
Restoring order.
$5 to support Gio and Prude. Well, you heard.
Thank you, my friend.
You heard the man. So
you better support us.
Sneed him over.
And when I do the show next week on my channel, you better have as many chats. God.
Corbin for $5 US says neat content with a little salute. Well, Corbin, we're very
salute to my friend. Thank you.
All of these are on a playlist, so even though it goes back and forth between my channel and Gio's, they're all together on a playlist called the Digital Archipelago. You can find it on my channel, publicly available.
Beautiful.
Yes, beautiful. Let's see here.
Opinion on Mooncrack. No. Look at Baroque in the chat.
I'm gonna have to find. I'm scrolling through to find
I
super
love that
chats, and you're
video where
reading the current stuff.
I love the video where the black guy's like, moon cricket. Like, that guy's an advanced racist. You got to learn from that guy. Like,
That's a historically accurate race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we used to sing those spirituals out in the moonlight. Like, the guy did it very well, though. Yeah.
Oh, it was so well done.
Yeah.
Cringe Walker for $2. Prude, the Great Escape physique, Geo, Roman physique. That's fair. That's fair.
That's fair.
I'll take it.
You know, some women are into otters. Some women like, you know, the burly, you know, yeah.
There's a woman out there for everybody.
Every prophet in their house. Exactly. Yeah.
Every man a king, all that jazz. Let's see here.
You know, some women fetishize that, like, to go with a twinkie, like, twink-looking man.
You're not helping, Geo.
Okay, sorry.
You're not helping, bud.
Like, female.
Not helping.
Never mind, man. Things I'll never know. But then,
Reprobus sends $5 US. The ride never ends, friends. No, it
clearly
doesn't.
the ride never ends.
You will not get off Mr. Bones' wild ride. But we're all here together, so we might as well enjoy the ride ourselves. Let's see. Ladislaus for $20 US.
$20.
Greatly appreciate your donation. Had to leave. Great stream as always, boys. If anyone hasn't seen Prude's latest videos, do yourself a favor and watch it. Well, my latest video that I have up is just the narration video that I have for my article in IM 1776 everywhere at the end of the West, which, you know, I've learned that my written audience, the people that like read what I put out, is vastly different than the YouTube audience. So
yeah,
it's resonated very well, and Dave liked it as well, so it's good to have feedback from friends. But yes, Ladislaus, we really are thankful for your support, and be sure to give Geo love on his channel next week.
Yes,
but if you haven't taken the time to go watch that one, it's just called Everywhere at the End of the West. It's a conversation about the caretaker and trying to view it from a right-wing perspective on modernity and our inability to like escape this like memory feedback loop of the 20th century. I think you all would enjoy it. Let's see here. Scrolling for the next one. Mr. Patchouli for £5.
Nice.
Bunch of fire and love. Well, that's what we're here for.
That's great.
Cringe Walker for $10 US says,
$10.
I know. We've been very blessed today. Thank you so much. Demons, get off on your suffering. If you want the most terrifying descriptions of Satan, first book of Adam and Eve, chapter 57. Whoever wrote that knew what it means to be broken.
Oh, let me look this up, actually. That's Genesis, right?
It's got to be. Genesis
chapter 57?
Yeah.
Genesis, King James. I usually use the Dewey Reams, but King James will do.
I love the King James, but I do like the Douay Reams 1899 American edition.
Yeah, let me see if I could. Oh man, I'm not being able to. 57. The righteous perisheth; no man layeth it to heart. And merciful men are taken away. None consider that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. He shall enter into peace. They shall rest in beds, each one waking to. I think I remember. Oh yeah, is it the pestilence that walketh in darkness? I think that was another one. Yeah, I'm trying to look it up here. But let's see, it's not given. I don't know why it's being,
unless he's referring to something else, but
a different book, maybe.
Trying to now look for the other super chats while we figure this one out. All
right, moving on.
Let's see if I can
find it.
Spasticus Autisticus. This is one of my favorite. This guy and the user Scrotchy McDumpwaffle are probably some of my favorite names that give super chats.
I think I found it. Saint answered and said to him, "It is I who hid myself within the serpent, who spoke to Eve and who introduced." Oh, so this is the Adam and Eve story. 57:3. But when Adam heard these words from him, he said, "Can you make me a garden as God made for me? Or can you clothe me in the same bright nature and God hath clothed me?" And he answered, "When the divine nature you promised to give me, where is the slick speech of yours that you had with us when we were given in the garden?" Then Satan said to Adam, Do you think that when I had promised one something, that I would actually deliver it to him or fulfill my word? Of course not. For I myself have never, ever thought of obtaining what I promised. Whoa! That's powerful right there. Anyway, Spartacus, that's amazing. But
got a goth GF who listens to Varg, lads. We are all gonna make it.
whoa!
That is
Amazing.
a rare find. Congrats.
That's a rare find right there. Unfortunately, Varg gave up on music a few years ago. He said it's not like a worthy pursuit anymore, but unfortunately, but I don't know. I think he's wrong. I think the best thing he ever did was his music, in my opinion. But that's, anyways. Thank you. That's amazing. A goth GF into person.
Yeah, that's something you just don't find these days.
Man.
The next one is also got some scripture for us to reference, so I'm pulling that out as well. I am going to use, of course, the let me get it out ready there. If I can find it. There we go. The 1899 American edition, because that's the one that I own. And it's Michael for $5. There's a lot of Michaels in our chat here, but this is one of them. Galatians 5:14 through 26, War Against the Flesh, literally a discernment guide to conducting spirit. I love Galatians.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see the full chapter. Here we go. Here I'm going to go to 14 to 26. We'll do a little reading. And he says, "For the law is fulfilled in one word, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But if you bite and devour one another, take heed you be not consumed by another. I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lusts of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. For these are contrary to one another, so that you do not the things that you would. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are fornication, uncleanliness, immodesty, and luxury, idolatry, witchcrafts, enmities, contentions, emulations, wraths, quarrels, dissensions, and sects, envies, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like. Of these things I foretell you, as I have foretold you, that they who do such things shall not obtain the kingdom of God."
Whoa!
I mean, it's pretty powerful in that regard. Galatians is probably one of my favorite epistles in the New Testament. Alongside Romans, although I do have a special place in my heart also for Hebrews, but we don't really know who wrote Hebrews. It's many attribute it to St. Paul, but it doesn't have the things that Paul writes in his other epistles, but we'll never know. But Galatians is a fantastic text.
It reminds me of that one letter in St. Paul where he said, like, when you layeth with a hua, that you are but one flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, like, when you layeth with somebody, we all know what layeth means. That you are like the two becoming one, and that in order to that it will leave you with a profound emptiness if you end up becoming of one body with as my people say, a putana. So just that's a word of warning right there. It's like, in other words, you choose to be with somebody. It's like, and you don't make a good choice, and it's not going to end well for you. Yeah.
Let's see here. Alternate avenues. This is an interesting one for $4.99 US.
Whoa.
I'm not sure how to respond to the blatant whiteism in our sphere, and I haven't figured out how to contextualize it. Advice.
Man, I don't know if to touch this one.
As in this place is overly white.
Well, I mean, you don't know behind those avatars. You don't know if it's a Brazilian or not.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that I feel like half of that sort of space that we often is someone that's probably that's the greatest. Who was it? Winthrop or someone else who said that the deleted scene in Look Who's Back is that it misses out when the certain Austrian painter is getting asked for autographs by a bunch of Turks,
Africans,
and
Indians, and Serbs,
that want him, that love him. So I mean,
you'd be surprised how multicultural white nationalists are.
You'd also be surprised just how multiracial the coalition of racists is on Twitter. My artwork is done by a Brazilian. One of my favorite people to talk to is a Ecuadorian man. So it's just like, well, but the other thing is that who's the biggest sort of, I guess the thing I would say to contextualize it is that what is in the high-low versus middle model, what has been the biggest threat has been the wealthy, independent, white middle class that
Yeah.
tends to be depersonalized, atomized, and turned into an enemy, Radio Rwanda style, in our public education system, the media, etc. That's your target, and so you get a bunch of disaffected white guys that are now sort of the premier beating and whipping boy of the system, both in music, media, everywhere else. I mean, that's partially why this has been such a dissident space. I mean, I don't even know, for instance, I don't know Bab's stocks or anything like that. It's not my place to know. But like, if he doesn't meet your traditional definition of, say, white or whatever, and he's one of the biggest advocates for trying to like say things that would, improve the status of like middle American white males that need a job and things like that, well, then yeah, you're going to be dealing with a pretty multiracial coalition here, which is ironic, but it's going to be
overwhelmingly. I'm pretty sure he's white, though. I'm pretty sure he's white.
I'm pretty sure. But I mean, that's the thing is that in these spheres, the target has always been, as long as it's been kind of clear, target's been white, so that's what it's going to be. A coalition I'm not opposed to, but at the end of the day, right? Like, that's who they're up against.
Well, if you want a non-meme, like, yeah, I'll give a serious answer like Prude. And for Miss Prachulia, Bap, he only lived in, I believe he lived in Brazil for about 8 years. I think he can speak Portuguese. But my mother was born and raised in Brazil. So, yeah, but ethnically Italian. I think that it's okay. It's hard to say because it's like to say that the right wing is like an explicit, like a white movement. I think that a lot of like white nationalist ideas have permeated the vast majority of the right wing for an obvious reason, because we are largely a movement, or not even a movement, but we do come together based off of predominantly European ideals. And we base our philosophy and our ideas off of that sort of, which America's largely extended of, that European world. And I think that even though the traditional like alt-right may be gone, even though white nationalists are like a subsection within the right wing or the E-right, I think that these ideas have permeated the E-right for an obvious reason. And I think that it's no shame to be honest about that we are like probably explicitly, at least in terms of our ideas and in terms of our identities, even largely predominantly of European descent. And I feel that in America, this is complicated. That's why, white is used as a term. But I think that, yeah, there's definitely a lot of like pro-white ideals are in the right wing for a reason. I mean, because their enemies are so large, just by virtue, like Prude was saying, by virtue of the fact that our enemies are so overwhelmingly anti-white, that it's like, it's logical in a way. So I think that's a diplomatic answer. Hopefully diplomatic answer. Yeah.
That would be as diplomatic as I could probably make it out. But I mean, the other thing, though, to also keep in mind, and I'm sure someone will give me shit for it in the comments, but it's just like, whatever you want to call this disgusting project of modernity, like, yeah, it affects, traditionally like what you would call white European stock or whatever, but it does affect everybody.
Oh, yeah, differently, but it does affect everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the thing that I think that if you were to tell someone who's more like a alt-right 1.0 or say white nationalist, is that your best example of what you're trying to defend or save is to look at what the United States government did in the Great Society in the 1960s to the black community in America, because you essentially created genocide by destroying the black middle class, two-parent households, education, a rising median income and wealth. And that's demonstrable of something that's pretty horrifying. And I think you're watching that happen to every race writ large in America. But it's now being targeted through things like opioids and drugs and media and single-parent households.
It's just that, like, in the interim, certain races are weaponized against the middle class for, like, different reasons.
And I mean, to quote Spandrel right from his bio-Leninist essays, eventually someone, most likely a woman at this point, will come to power and say, give me power, or I will make sure that things become 1950 again, where it's okay to be white and you're on your own. I'm paraphrasing it there, but it's a big chunk of, I think, also that keeps it in mind that it's been coalition based. I mean, racial voting blocks have been a big part of it. That's why the Irish had become a very substantial Republican voting bloc after the Civil War, because, well, Lincoln imported a good chunk of them to help fight that war.
Yeah, that's right. They say whole regiments are Irish. in the
the
Union
Irish,
side. Yeah.
the Irish Brigade, the Irish Volunteers. You literally had people who fought for the North and South that were literally from just miles away from each other back in Ireland,
Yeah.
killing each other in places in like Virginia.
Yeah, because there's the Dutch Irish in Virginia. Yeah, yeah. In the South, they have the Dutch Irish.
Yeah.
In certain areas like Virginia, the Carolinas, I believe. Well, you know more than me about that.
Yeah,
Like,
but there's the more so of them settled up in New England too for the longest time. Not to mention, of course, McClellan being as politically popular as he once was in the military, potentially ran for president. So just think it's a neat history. I might have to do a stream on just the Irish influence in American politics from the Civil War onwards. But Cringe Walker says it's apocryphal. I'll send you photos. It's not from Genesis. Oh, so I think we figured that out, Cringe Walker. But thank you so much for your
look
support.
at Reagan Lodge here. Look, I can't believe this. I love you, Gio, but after we win, after we achieve base world, the Italians have to go back to Africa. Sorry, man. Well, hey, man. I mean, listen, I wouldn't mind. Like, I will follow the trail of my ancestors and help recolonize Ethiopia. And we will create a Afrofuturist Italian-X kingdom where I will have the first Nubian queen since, I believe, the 1500s. Yeah, well, we're going to do that. So don't worry about it. Don't worry.
I think one of my favorite things on Twitter was someone had carved out like a Western colonialism 2.0 of Africa. And someone said that Ethiopia was Patriarch Prime's little patriarchate. I couldn't help but chuckle at that.
Well, no, you know, they're not Bantus, eh? Like, they're genetically different. Like, I remember Nemitz was talking about this on my podcast. Like,
well, yeah, and up until the Italians took over, they were basically the one place that wasn't colonized and was explicitly Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, Ethiopian Christianity or their orthodoxy is a little different. They're not in communion with the rest of the other Orthodox churches, but they are some of the most devout people I've ever met. That's for sure.
No, but also the land bridge. I mean, the hill.
Oh, yeah.
I think the hills, they prevented the Bantus from expanding northward. So those peoples, they're very mixed with Mediterraneans to begin with, and Arabs and Ethiopians. I don't believe they'd have a very strong Bantu gene. I mean, it could be wrong, but I know this is what Nemitz told me, is that the Bantus didn't expand in that direction. So Ethiopians, they're basically not. Yeah, they're not genetically Bantoid. So yeah.
And then Michael says here,
the sufficiently horny man can never be totally racist. Put it that way. So
that's well, Gio, there you go. But speaking of being perpetually horned, Michael for $10 says, "For we do not wrestle against the flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against the rulers of the darkness of this age." Ephesians 6:12. And I mean, there's quite a bit there that was timeless. I mean, we certainly are against the rulers of darkness of this age. And that's where we are.
Oh, another thing too. Did you know Mussolini wrote about how the Ethiopians weren't exactly black either? Did you know that? I mean, Carlsbad posted this. He said that. Yeah.
Interesting. I don't follow this stuff nearly as much as I should. Maybe I don't. I like Nemitz and I like the work that he does. It's just that sort of kind of historical ancient genetic autism just never.
I know it's hard to follow. It is hard to follow.
I feel like I would have to like go back to school to get a remote start there. But
did you see? Oh, by the way, did you see the tweet I sent you on Telegram? Maybe you should throw that up with Jonathan Bowden.
Yeah. Ladislaus for
another $20.
I know, look at him. He says, was able to get back in time for the super chats. I'll drop a big one next week on Geo. Support the boys.
Oh,
well, we're deeply thankful. But yeah, let me go throw that up here. And we can wrap up with that.
Yeah.
Because this has been I think a very good episode. God, where are you, Geo? So I can go find this tweet on web.telegram, man. Web.telegram, I swear. There you go, Giant Geo.
Oh boy, here comes another big one. Oh boy, big news. Tucker Carlson had a fat incel with a fez on his show talking about true cells. True cells are even more radical faction of incel. Do
I
the whole
also
bit.
I love that this that Joseph Cotto has like a Groiper parody account. That just kills me.
Yeah, Joseph Cotto Groper. There's nothing chivalric about a man being soy quoted behind a block where he doesn't even have a chance to pull his name in his meme folder onto the screen. Evola would prefer the doctrine of the Groipion. You know where the two terminally online armies meet. Oh man, I just know like the private account quote tweeting you. That's probably like some Groiper or like, you know. Oh man.
Well,
Peter
Mr.
Nevin's
Geo,
Groiper.
there you go. Oh, there's one for almost every major E-celeb at this point.
I know that atrazine was Scott Greer Groiper for a little bit. So. I've seen Patrick Casey Groiper.
He's got one or two out there for sure.
Yeah.
But Gio, is there anything that you would like to promote and let the audience know about who you are and what you're doing?
Okay. I want to try to. I was thinking about doing an article on the backrooms that will probably be released sometime soon. I know I haven't released an article in forever. I have a bunch of stuff to work on, but my patrons are going to get the first installment of the Wired Magazine article on Janet Reviews called "The Future Doesn't Need Us" by I think his last name was Joy. And next week I'll probably release the second Stan Hames episode of Content Minded, and I'm gonna probably release a clip, like a teaser clip from one of the streams. I've been lagging on it. I released a teaser clip on Monday. Go to my channel, Jenner Productions, where I did this rant. It was during the Jenner Reviews breakdown of the book Psychopolitics by Byung-Chul Han, where I talk about the song Cars by Gary Newman. But it's about like the car discourse. If you remember a month back or so, people were talking about the cars and the walkable cities, right? So I talk about the sort of like symbolic nature of cars from a deeper meaning. But anyways, yeah. So on Jenner Reviews is a series I do for only my patrons, patreon.com/Jenner Productions, where I review interesting texts, and I have a 7-part series that I believe is 10 hours in total on Byung-Chul Han's Psychopolitics. So I'm going to also be reviewing another Byung-Chul Han book pretty soon. But yeah, I have a bunch of interesting streams I'm planning. Sorry, I mean content-minded episodes. But maybe I'll do solo streaming soon again. I don't know. I'll see. But yeah, next week. And the week after that, I'll probably release the So-So episode. So that's going to be very good. We go
I
for
can
like
vouch that one's going to be a very good episode.
Yeah. Yeah, we go like 3 hours. It's amazing. We cover many topics from the E-right, the situation with Russia, a bit of Texas history as well. So-So's a great guy, and he's one of the best posters. And so 2 weeks from now, that'll come about. So yeah, unfortunately, the Stan Hames one I have to like take a scalpel to because we go on for a long time, and you have to see what's like YouTube friendly and not. But yeah, so.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to talk to Stan Hames on the phone or whatever, you'll quickly learn that it doesn't stop. And I say that with all the love in the world. I've had many a phone call with him where it's just like, all right, man, it's 11:30. I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, I gotta go. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, man. And so that's my thing, and I'm trying to like put stock on the website, trying to get that done at least by the end of October, early November. So yeah, it's good, man. I have a bunch of Patreon stuff lined up too. I'm probably going to release an exclusive article as well on Patreon. I'm going to start doing that. Like I know you do that. Yeah, because I don't want to divide it between Substack and Patreon. I don't know. Some people they treat
I put it behind
Substack
the paywall, but I also make sure that my Subscribe Start guys just get access to the Word doc as well.
Yeah, that could be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's what Morgoth does and so does Oren. So I went with what people already do.
Maybe I should do that in the future if I get, because the thing is I'm kind of lagging with writing, but it's just that this idea I had for a sort of analysis on the backrooms just came to me based because like, oh, another thing too, please follow me because it was originally intended for a Telegram rant. Follow my Telegram. I want to get to 1,000 subs like Prude, where on Telegram I have exclusive content in terms of rants, like longer rants that I do, things that are probably not appropriate for Twitter. I'll put on Telegram. So please go to my Telegram, telegram.com/Jenner Productions.
I'll link
it's all
in the description.
I'll link there. It's on my Find My Friends, which I mean, very thankful for Charlemagne for initiating me into the YouTuber Dissident Hall of Fame by putting me on Find My Friends. So very thankful to Charlie. Do you think Charlie will do a content mining one day? What can we talk about? I don't know.
I think you guys could talk about nearly about anything. Charlemagne's a pretty
Yeah.
good guy. You just got to schedule a time when he's not busy making a
Yeah.
new life for himself.
Yeah, he moved recently, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. So life's been good though for him, and I think
That's
he's
good.
enjoying his escape from the rural or the urban area that he once lived in. So I'll say that much. But as for on this end, on my channel, ladies and gents, this Saturday, I'm going to have our good friend Dan Baltic back on. We're going to talk about the nature of political satire and
Nice.
how the hell you write political satire in the year of our Lord 2022. And we'll also talk about his new book, Nutcranker. You'll see why this is probably one of the best examples of, despite the title of the book, you will find out why this is probably one of the best political satire pieces that has recently been written, that Gio and I have both had the chance to review and write about, or at least for the book itself. So good stuff coming there.
Yep.
And as the super chat mentioned, I do have a new video out called Everywhere at the End of the West. That's available for you guys to watch down below. And then on next Saturday, the 22nd, my geopolitical show will be back as Prudent Observations. We'll be talking a lot more on something very timely, which is both scary but important for us to know, which is about nuclear weapons policy and the geopolitics of that. So things are coming up strong on the channel. And if you're not subscribed, please do so. We are very close to 8K here, and we'd like to get those numbers up. So we're all thankful for what you do. We're only 14 episodes in, but the show has been a wild success in terms of viewership.
Yeah.
So incredibly thankful.
And it's even between channels too. So
I know it stays consistent. We have a kick-ass audience. Chat is amazing as always, and we're thankful for that. But with that,
next week I'm gonna try to get Matthew the Stout, maybe, but I can't promise. But I floated the idea to him, so maybe next week we'll have him on. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Guest, yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Maybe Reagan Lodge. We'll get Reagan Lodge on sometime.
Oh, we should.
Yeah.
But with that, gentlemen, and the maybe
even
one
though he
or
wants
two
to send me back to
there.
Africa, I can't do this. You think that's a punishment? Me conquering Africa and becoming a king, and having a Nubian wife? You think that's a punishment to me? Okay. Kidding.
But until then, we'll see you all next week on Gio's channel. Take care.
Thank you all. God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet. Doing the hand sign.